Well, we did it.
We did it.
We were actually approved to come back for a second episode.
Woohoo! Woo! And not only that, but we were approved to come back for a second episode at what is apparently the end of the world 2012.
Yeah, sure it is.
The first episode of the new and possibly last year.
You know what? It's funny. I wish that we kind of did do these every week, because then we could have a special episode of just about like the best of world destruction stuff.
Oh man!
But you know they don't like us that much.
No, and otherwise they would probably do like 13 re-releases of that Cusack movie, and we just end up talking about them every week.
That's true. I could watch the Cusack movie again, but that's a whole nother story of denigration, for my opinion.
Well, I was going to say I could too, but that's really a...
Look at who we're talking to.
Yeah, it's not the best benchmark of quality opinion.
We're talking about Say Anything, right?
Yes, Say Anything.
That's the one. Well, as you can tell, we're a little rough around the edges this week, because we just got done with, New Year's Eve, or New Year's Evil, as the case may be, with Brian and Luke's big annual New Year's Eve bash, which always puts a hurting on the whole world, because there's always liquor there that no one in their right mind would drink.
No, they shouldn't.
And you end up drinking it.
And I do, all of it. And usually at once. No, that's the more surprising thing. It's not that we're coming back for a second episode, but we're still alive to record it.
Indeed. But yes, I am Cyrus.
And I am Brian.
And I am Luke. Kind of.
Luke.
Unfortunately, my voice was one of the victims of 2011. But hopefully 2012 will be a better year. And, I, for one, welcome our barefoot, proverb-spitting overlords.
Welcome to Remote Viewing, episode number 2. I guess it's technically 3, but the first one wasn't called.
Well, the first one's like episode 0, so I mean...
Exactly. Now, before we even get started, I want to say, and this wasn't available for me to say last time, because we do lots of contests during these, where we've got tons of stuff to give away. We gave away a shit ton of DVDs and Blu-rays last month, and we got even more to give away this time, some really awesome shit. But part of the problem was that there was no way of directing people right to the place where they could check and see if people had actually won something or not. Mm-hmm. And now I created the remote viewing group on Spill. Where you can go to, and there's always going to be a section inside of it that shows when the new contests start, who's won what already, so you can stop emailing me a week after the entries go.
Or a week ago.
But okay, so here's the deal. Every time we start talking about one of these things for giveaway, I'm going to throw in, and it's a little different from last time, I'm going to throw in a code word. Like, let's say the code word is...
Banana hammock.
Banana hammock. There you go. Okay.
It's pure coincidence that he happens to be wearing one of those.
Yes.
Wow, it's not a coincidence that my brain just wanted to shut down. Like
well, listen,
it's
after New Year's Evil. I can't find the rest of my clothes. There's a possibility they were burned in the yard. I'm not sure, but what I have left is the golden banana hammock.
I'm surprised you owned one.
Are you?
I'm not. I was going to say, why are you surprised?
I shouldn't be anymore.
Yeah, it was a freebie from the Showgirls Blu-ray release, I think.
Hell yeah! It was a freebie from Multiplex 6.
But anyway, whenever we come up, when I go around to giving away one of these things, I'm going to give you a code word, and then somewhere on the site, I will be writing down the name of that movie indeed, just randomly. Like, say it's a Coco, and somewhere in the comments I'll write Futurama. And when that happens, you email to me, send me a message now, don't put it on my profile wall, send me a message saying, hey, this is the movie, this is when you put it where, and this is the code word. And you win it.
And you win. It's just that easy.
I'm not like Corey. You'll get your shit. Like, in a week.
Shit.
Yeah, he'll actually send it to you. It's incredible.
Corey, that's a long-standing joke. He's good about that now. But there was some shake-up early on in the contest area of Spill, where there's, I believe, a few months between winning and receiving of things. But you know what? That's water under the virtual bridge. We'll just move on with the way that we do things, which is to send you your gifts immediately. But you know what? With no further ado, let's just jump right into Remote Viewing Episode 2.
Ba-boom.
So, any feeling about where you guys want to start with this one? Because as always, we've got so much good stuff to cover that came out in this past month.
Yeah, we have a lot to cover this time around.
Yeah.
You know what? If it's cool with everybody else, I think I want to start with the Criterion release.
Okay.
Because I think we saved that for toward the end last time. I guess there's more than one Criterion release.
Well, are you talking? I bet you're talking about the Lady Vanishes.
I am talking about the Lady Vanishes. That's
correct. You actually
correct.
went back and watched that again, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an enormous Hitchcock fan and have been since like the earliest days of my film geekdom, but I am less familiar with his early British stuff than I am his kind of Technicolor American stuff. So I did go back and revisit, and sure enough, The Lady Vanishes is just as good upon second viewing as it was the first time.
And this was, in fact, the second to last of the British films before he said, hey, they're paying a lot more in Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah, it was always kind of his dream to make a successful movie in Hollywood because one of his idols was, oh, God, I'm blanking, Cecil B. DeMille. So he wanted to kind of have that same success.
And those budgets to work with.
And those budgets to work with, exactly. So, The Lady Vanishes basically is about this woman who is about to be married. She's in a country that I'm fairly certain, now don't hold me to this because my geography of the 30s is not what it should be, but she's in a country that I'm pretty sure is made up. And she's heading to get married, and she gets on a train and meets an older British woman who she's having a conversation with. She gets into a sleeping car, and she falls asleep, and when she wakes up, the lady's gone, and no one else seems to remember this woman ever being on the train.
Yeah, they're openly saying, there was no woman there. Although, in this film, as opposed to a number of other, there's been I think 2 remakes of this, and then there's Jodie Foster's Flight Plan.
That was like Flight Plan.
Flight Plan.
Yeah, but and here you as the audience know right off the bat that she's not crazy because you hear some of these people going, yeah, I saw her, I just don't want to get involved.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about this is the way that he works in these interconnecting storylines. Because some people do have nefarious reasons for saying the woman wasn't there, and some of them are just
Americans.
Yeah,
some of them don't want to get caught as adulterers.
There's that. There's translation problems. There's like all these different things kind of coming together at once to cause this shitstorm of trying to convince this woman that she's crazy, and yet she keeps finding clues that she's not. And it's you spend about the first 20 minutes wondering how this is a Hitchcock film.
Yeah.
Because she's tooling around this.
It's one of his lighter-hearted films.
Yeah, it almost feels like a road comedy. Because she gets to this end and everything's going wrong and it's all silly and she's not even really the main focus for the first.
No, the main focus are these 2 British dudes who are more obsessed with cricket than anything else.
Yeah.
Who actually went on to be hugely successful as those characters in a series of other films, television series. Like it was weird. I didn't think they were that funny in the movie. In fact, I thought they were like, okay, we get it. You like cricket and you're tired. But English audiences thought it was fucking hysterical.
I thought some of the stuff they said we actually had to rewind and watch again because we were laughing so hard.
Charles
it was very
and Caldecott by Naunton Wayne and Basil Radford, who are like more British than Benedict Cumberbatch's name.
No one more British than Benedict Cumberbatch.
No, I think Benedict Cumberbatch has like the most British name in history.
Yeah, but it's got a lot of comedy in it. It's very lighthearted. It's got this great chemistry between the 2 leads. Michael Redgrave, Vanessa and Lynn Redgrave's dad, plays the romantic lead of the film, who at first doesn't get along at all with Margaret Lockwood, who's the woman in question.
Sure.
Yeah.
But as it goes on, he's the only one who gives her the benefit
defense,
of the doubt.
Kind of because he's a dick.
He's a huge dick.
Well, she's also the only hot single girl on the train.
Which is all well and good, but like he's a dick to her in the hotel. Like there's
an important lesson to be learned from this, folks. And
he is like the initial display of negging.
Yeah.
Way back in the 30s.
Yeah, totally. You're right.
He totally he's got some kind of dance recital going on in his room above her, and she asked the manager to get rid of him, so he walks into her room as she's sleeping and basically says, "Well, I'm staying with you since you got me kicked out, unless you want to get me reinstated." And just lays down next to her and takes his shit out. It's like, dude, what? Get out!
How does that work?
I don't know how you don't get shot. You could not do that shit in Texas. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't know, man. People like that book, The Game. Apparently, that's a thing. They treat them like shit, treat them like shit, treat them like shit until they're like, all right, let me see your dick.
Well, that's kind of how it ends up somehow.
Yeah.
Oddly enough.
I don't approve, but nonetheless, it was a meet cute in Hitchcock's day in The Lady Vanishes.
Yeah.
A meet aggressively cute. But yeah, no, this is a great movie. It so holds up. In fact, as I'm watching it, and I know it's a sin to even say, wow, I'd like to see a remake of this, but I didn't want to see a remake. I wanted to remake it. I was like, this is so brilliant, and I totally see how you could do a modern day version of this and make it work, and what actors would be good in it.
Right.
It's like, and you could use almost the same script.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So much of the dialogue is still, it's not like, what the fuck are they talking about? It still feels very current.
One of my favorite lines is, right before she gets on the train, the woman who everyone thinks is crazy, gets a flower pot dropped on her head, and later on when she's explaining to the dick guy what's going on, she goes, well, I was hit in the head, and he goes, you mean in infancy? And it's just like so snappy and like right on.
Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and move on to the other Criterion film we have to discuss this week, which I finally saw. I've been putting off watching all month.
Well, real quickly, that was The Lady Vanishes.
Yes, The Lady Vanishes.
Sorry. You're right. Thank you for holding me to
supposedly we're bookending these days.
Thank you for holding me to my yes.
So we've been discussing the Criterion release of The Lady Vanishes, which we all really enjoyed, and now we are moving on
to Tokyo Drifter.
Tokyo Drifter.
An excellent film.
Now, Tokyo Drifter is an oddity in a lot of ways. It's still, it wasn't even like one of those films you could say was like widely copied, because it wasn't considered to be really that influential till years later. Mm-hmm. But it came at the tail end of the beginning of the Japanese movement for Yakuza films, right? Mm-hmm. And so they had paid this director in question,
Seijun Suzuki,
a lot of money to make another potboiler, basically.
Right.
And he turned around and made this crazy Technicolor, almost satire of 60s like Bond and In Like Flynn movies, mixed with like parodies of musicals and westerns, but all done totally straight-faced.
Right.
Yeah, it's really wild to watch, and it leads up with, obviously we don't want to spoil anything, but it leads up to a finale that is kind of mind-blowing, but really, really beautiful and well shot and just kind of amazing to watch.
Yeah, I would say that even if you're not really that into the story, which is admittedly kind of hard to follow at points.
Sure.
But if you're not into it, just watch the damn film. Mm-hmm. Its cinematography and the mise-en-scene, which basically means like the sets and the costume design and the lighting and all that, is so startling.
Yeah.
It takes you back like, wow, I've never seen anybody do anything like that before.
This came from a studio, a movement. Yeah, they're more than a studio really. I would consider them a movement in Japan in the 60s, which was Nikatsu, which was a studio that was producing a lot of these gangster movies, and basically their goal was to be more like an American studio where they churned out blockbuster after blockbuster after blockbuster, and that is why you get movies like Tokyo Drifter that do have definite influences from westerns and from musicals, and then they were also influenced a lot by French New Wave, so there's a lot of kind of moodiness and weird emotional resonance. Like there's a lot of
definite Melville vibe in a lot of the Nikatsu stuff.
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of a pastiche of like different film styles that were popular at the time that they were kind of making their own and creating these very weird little pictures. I would also highly recommend Seijun Suzuki did a movie called Branded to Kill, which is also, it's not a Blu-ray release from Criterion yet, but starring...
Well, I'm sure it's got to be on their list because I believe they were right next to each other on DVD spine numbers, or fairly close. And
it was the same director. It stars a guy named Joe Shishido, who is one of the coolest cinematic motherfuckers
he's like
I have ever seen.
Japanese Steve McQueen.
Yeah, he's just amazing. So
not the British film director.
Not the British film director.
Not the recent film director.
No.
Not the
old school
guy.
Steve McQueen.
Okay.
Yeah. But Tokyo Drifter is an amazing film to watch, but you're right. It is one of those things that kind of... You're taken aback by it because you don't expect it to look like this, and you don't expect it to be this weird combination of different styles, but ultimately something really fascinating to watch.
Do you want to real quickly say what the plot is for this? Because I'm not sure how to describe it on the whole. Something about betrayal or not betrayal. Well, yeah, about betrayal.
Yeah, he's basically, he's screwed over by his boss.
Yeah, eventually.
But he doesn't know at first that it's, like, we know as the audience what the situation is, but basically it's one of those situations where he feels like he's failed his boss, so he becomes a drifter. It's one of those things that there's a lot of honor. It's almost like a Ronin situation. It's like he's failed his boss, so now he has to wander the earth.
Well, yeah, he is the Tokyo Drifter, as he insists on singing to the audience.
Yes, he did.
There's a good amount of music.
He did actually record the song for the movie.
Well, he was a pop singer. This was, I believe, his first performance.
That's
in fact, from what I've read, they literally had, and I don't mean that in the sense that everyone overuses the term literally. I mean literally had to poke him with a stick to get him to start acting in every scene he was in. Because he was like really frightened and like very taciturn.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun.
No, that's a great story.
And they do that a lot. Like Mako Kaji in the Scorpion female prisoner movies.
Yeah.
You're getting outside
female
of
prisoner 5.
Yeah, female prisoner 401 or something. She did
3 numbers.
She did the song for that, "Flower of Carnage," which ended up in Kill Bill. So they did that a lot, where they made the stars sing the theme songs.
And I'm glad you brought up Kill Bill, because there's no question watching this film that Tarantino is a ridiculously huge fan of this film.
Definitely.
There is so much stuff from here that watching it, you're like, oh, holy shit, this is all Kill Bill cribbed from this really hard.
Sure,
Exactly.
absolutely.
There's a huge bizarro fist fight inside a barn here that isn't really Kill Bill per se, but it is one of the funniest things I've ever seen, because no one actually gets hurt, but they're just bashing the shit out of each other for like 10 minutes.
Is that like, the Old West barroom brawl?
Yeah, it's an Old West ballroom brawl that goes on, and it's so surreal. It doesn't even make sense who's fighting who.
It's like it's on another planet.
Exactly. It's suffice to say, this film's actually really fun to watch if you can just go, okay, I'm just going to let it wash over me.
Exactly.
Sure. And I mean, that's not to say that you can't kind of follow the story a little bit, because you can.
Yeah,
but really,
can. Yeah.
as we were saying, the film is in a big way is about the colors that are used.
Yeah.
There's a lot of symbolism there and a lot of cool stuff going on. I actually, not long ago, I was traveling overseas and got a chance to see a 35 print of this at the BFI in London, and it is gorgeous. And I actually haven't popped in the Criterion Blu-ray yet, but I have no doubt that they did a stellar job.
Well, because they always do.
Because they always do. They take their time, and they spend a good amount of time on every release making sure that it looks great. And I'm sure if we pop over...
And as colorful as it is, it really does pop in this Criterion
Oh, yeah.
Blu-ray. It's outstanding.
But that was Tokyo Drifter from Criterion, available on Blu-ray. I want to talk about one here real quick, because it's actually, there's similar reasons for me to bring it up next, even though you guys didn't get to see it, called Moon in the Gutter. Okay, and Moon in the Gutter was it's a French film by Jean-Jacques Benet. I don't know if I'm saying his name right at all, but he was really well known for 2 films that bookended this. First, he did Diva, which was really insanely popular midnight cult film for a while. Very surreal, very colorful, very beautiful, if not very difficult to understand film. And then he did this, Moon in the Gutter, which just came out on Blu-ray, and then he did Betty Blue, which was almost kind of a minor commercial success, in fact. Very, very good film, very visually unforgettable. And Moon in the Gutter is it was largely forgotten because of the fact that it just goddamn doesn't make very much sense.
The French.
Yeah, well, it's so French. Holy shit. You know how people talk in abstractions when they don't need to? Like, nobody does that like the French. You're like, nobody talks that way. Is it just that you're using words that aren't translatable and the guy translating it sucks? I don't know.
It's beaucoup de français.
But anyway, so the story here follows Gerard Depardieu, who's like a dock worker. He lives in the shitty part of town. He has a beautiful girlfriend played by Victoria Abril, which, by the way, is like one of the most beautiful women who's ever lived. And he gets caught in a sort of romantic decision to stay with her or go with the woman who's actually more beautiful than her, Natasha Kinski, at the time, who's a rich girl who seems kind of crazy, and she and her brother are hanging out slumming it in the poor section of town. And this whole time, Gerard Depardieu's character is obsessed with finding the man the unknown guy who, as we see in the very beginning of this film, chased and raped his sister, his beautiful sister, in like this slum area, and then she cut her own throat with her right afterwards with her brother's razor. And it's one of the most, I mean, it's like Dario Argento, Suspiria era on taking too much LSD one night. It's just absolutely glowing and beautiful, and its colors you're like, wow, what the fuck is this movie? I didn't know this was a horror movie, because it seems like it's that era type of giallo, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, then it goes on to be this weird romantic drama. I don't know what to tell you. I'm really not sure what happened in the story. I mean, there's a lot of him going back and forth and wondering about the nature of life, and You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's French.
It's
God
fucking
damn it.
French.
Yeah, it's fucking French.
But every time I started to get a little tired with it, it would do something so visually creative and astonishing. I would just perk right up and go, my God, this guy's sense of like the cinematography and his sense of like balancing the scene are just, I mean, they're jaw dropping, quite frankly. There's so many beautiful things in here that it's almost a shame that I have a hard time really recommending it to people.
And it's weird that Nastassja Kinski turned out to be so beautiful, considering her father is one of cinema's most successful lizard men, Klaus Kinski.
Yeah, he's a little on the crazy side too.
He's so bizarre looking. It's just like, how did you come from that? I don't understand.
I don't know who her mother was, but she had to have been like
a knockout.
Yeah, was like condensed hotness or something. Both her parents were certainly hot. It's the only way this could have worked out genetically. Anyway, that was just a brief thing about this thing. It's available now on Blu-ray. Like I said, if you're a person who's really into visually oriented films, it is definitely worth a look. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's got a very, very young Dominique Pignon in it.
Oh, nice.
You'll remember from Delicatessen and City of Lost Children and Amelie, who, I mean, he can't be any older than 17 or 18 in this. And I was like, oh my God, that is him. One of those things. You're like, wow, he was actually kind of good looking when he was younger, as opposed to like when we're used to seeing him when he looks like a genetic cross between a frog and a man.
French, yes.
I don't even mean that in a French way. I mean literally a frog.
A literal frog. So that's Moon in the Gutter.
Yeah, Moon in the Gutter, available on Blu-ray. So anyway, do you have any suggestions where we go next on that?
Oh my goodness.
There's so many things to choose from.
I tell you what, yeah, I do have a suggestion. Based on you saying something you said about this movie, I think the next one we should talk about is Margin Call.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that was a 2011 release.
Yes, Margin Call. So, Margin Call is... Luke, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one.
Margin Call, ostensibly, I think, is about the subprime mortgage bubble and, you know, the end of humanity as we know it. Which I say this because I'm sure reading about the film will explain more than the plot does.
Yeah, that's when you said that you were watching that last movie and you watched it but you still didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
They obfuscate the details for the first, and no, I would say even throughout the whole movie.
Through the whole fucking film.
They play the cards so
really
close to
unsure.
the vest that you have no idea. Like, you know it's about a finance company. Yeah. And you know they've discovered something troubling. But they don't explain to the audience.
Man, the thing about Margin Call is that I really liked it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what it's about other than you know, vague platitudes.
Well,
but
you know what it's about. You just don't know what the financial crisis was.
Other than what I've heard. Like I'm really drawing a lot on what I had heard about the film before, because really, and I like what they do. I really do. They kind of throw you into this story, you know, and it's on a day when this firm fires a bunch of people. One of the people they fire is a guy played by Stanley Tucci named Eric Dale. And as he's on his way out, his boss is Paul Bettany. Paul Bettany's boss is Kevin Spacey. This all kind of plays out. That is an amazing cast. But one of Stanley Tucci's guys, one of his young guys is Zachary, played by Zachary Quinto. And on his way out, he hands him this USB drive, and he's like, "I've been working on this. I know it's something big, but I haven't figured it out yet. Be careful." And those are like the last words as the elevator slides shut, and you're just kind of chilled. You're like, shit. And so it throws you into this story as Zachary Quinto takes this, decides to stay late that night, and finds out that, you know, something bad
Let me describe to you
happened.
every scene. The minute Zachary Quinto makes the discovery of what this is, which he discovers looking at his computer screen that we don't get to see, and from that point, this is every scene. Are these numbers correct? Yeah, these numbers are correct. Do you know what the fuck this means? Yes, I know what the fuck this means. Are we sure these numbers are correct? Get the chairman in here. And meanwhile, we're like, we don't know what the numbers mean.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Now, this is based on, not directly, like not with the actual people, but the situation that happened in real life with the Lehman Brothers, the investment bank. Now, everyone knows about the scandals that were going on and everything. Can you explain to me what happened there?
With the Lehman Brothers? No.
Yeah, me neither. Okay. And I think that's what they were. I think that's exactly what they figured when they were making this movie. They're like, look, everyone knows that there was some scandal and corruption.
True, and I can tell you a little bit.
Yeah,
like it basically comes down to they're commodities brokers, so they're brokering debt essentially, and part of what they were selling to people was a package. They had started packaging these mortgages, these subprime mortgages, in with other debt from different places and making like a little bundle that people would buy. And I think what happened was that because banks were okaying these subprime mortgages, they weren't worth anything anymore because there was no money behind them. People weren't putting down payments, and they were paying far less than what they should have been. And as a result, it looks like an asset on the books because it's a pile of debt that should mature into, over 30 years, $100,000 or whatever,
sure,
$200,000. But there's no money behind it, and because there was no money behind it, like the buying and selling were not. You were getting to the point where your losses were bigger than your gains.
Right.
It's all in like pretend money.
Well, that's the thing. It's like when you start dealing with money on these type of numbers and with loaning and that sort of thing, then you're dealing, right from the get-go, from dealing with math equations.
It's like Canadian
economic
money. It's
equations.
Not real.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so what that basically boils down to is that margin call is the most pseudo-interesting economics chart that you will ever watch for 107 minutes.
And it is, because it's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah,
I loved it. I really did.
I did too.
And the one thing I would say is that I'm all for it being difficult to understand, and I get that, but there's a point, and you're like an hour in already, where Jeremy Irons has come in and he is like the head of the company and shit has hit the fan.
Whenever in a movie Jeremy Irons enters,
shit has hit the fan. Yeah, because Jeremy Irons is there.
Yeah, exactly.
Saw someone talk to
so
me.
Jeremy
Tell me
Irons
what the fuck is going on.
Very calm, very like, don't fucking fuck with me or I will kill you, And Jeremy Irons is like, no one else talk. Zachary Quinto, explain this to me like I'm a child.
Yeah.
And he explains it to him in words that we don't understand.
Well, he goes so far as to say, explain it to me like I'm a golden retriever. And then Quinto gets up and goes, okay. And then still throws out, like, economics 305 terms. Yeah. And I'm just like,
so, like,
great,
I feel like
thanks.
that was their big chance. Because it's got to be, there's got to be a way to simplify it for
what this needed was that slideshow that they got to see in the beginning of Jurassic Park, basically.
Yeah, totally.
They need to take the characters and the little
and they had that opportunity script-wise to do it there. They didn't do it. That's still a really interesting film. I'd almost still recommend it.
It is an interesting film, but that's what pisses me off. It's like, not only do they not want to dumb it down, and that's fine, but they literally like flirt with the idea of making you be able to understand it, and then they don't. And it's like,
the real problem with that is that you, as a result, you as an audience member have no idea what the stakes are.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You don't know, and there's clearly an ethical decision being made. Kevin Spacey is clearly struggling with some kind of ethical decision, but with no further understanding of the story, it holds no weight for you.
See, my thing is, like, I got the ethics and the moral of the story. I just didn't get the specifics of what was the problem.
See, I don't understand the ethics behind it.
But I thought that, like, this is the first time writer-director J.C. Chandor, and he got so many things right, except it felt like he didn't trust the intelligence of his own audience enough to actually spend the time explaining it to them. Because, like, hey, we're going to see a movie about Wall Street. You can expect that we care enough that we'd like to know what actually you're talking about.
Absolutely.
And that was really a fatal flaw here because, like I said, in every other way, this is a terrific little movie.
Sure. I honestly feel like this is a good film, and if they had taken the time, this sounds so weird because it's such a basic thing. If they had taken the time to explain what the fuck was happening in their film, it really would have been a great film.
Yeah.
It would have gone easily from good to great.
But instead they tapped into that rare commodities broker box office market and decided to pitch it just to them.
Well, it's funny because there is a genre of Wall Street films. Hell, last year had a bunch of them that came out.
Right, but those are really simple to and again, I don't need a movie to be stupid. Don't get me wrong. I don't need to be spoon-fed my details.
No. But you have to at least explain the details.
Yeah, like just a little let me
just
in.
A little
at
bit.
least it's plausible for a guy that doesn't have an economics degree to really
make it accessible. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
But how impressive is it for a first-time feature maker to get this cast?
Oh, it's a great
Kevin
cast.
Spacey, Paul Bettany, Jeremy Irons, Zachary Quinto, Simon Baker, Mary McDonnell, who shows up for literally like 15 seconds at the end of the film.
Demi Moore.
And she's great. Demi Moore and Stanley Tucci.
Give me a break, man.
All fantastic.
It's amazing.
All right, so that was Margin Call, available now on Blu-ray. Let's go to something. We're still dealing with the I guess we're dealing with the higher end films here. Did you guys get a chance to see Point Blank?
Yes.
We did. We watched Point Blank this afternoon.
I would call Point Blank one of the best action films of this past year, and it was a action film that manages to be something you wouldn't mind watching with your more highfalutin snooty friends as well.
Because it's French.
It's French, although it just as easily could not be.
Yeah.
It doesn't. There's not a lot about it that feels French. It doesn't even all the actors aren't necessarily French.
Yeah.
Like it's got Elena Anaya, I think is her name, who we saw in The Skin I Live In this year, who's one of the most beautiful fucking women working right now.
Yeah, she's gorgeous.
But anyway, the story here is a.
First of all, we need to make it clear. This is not the Lee Marvin Point Blank.
No.
This is not the... What's the other point?
Shit, there's like 4 others. Man.
Yeah.
It's none of those.
Yeah.
But it's brand new and it's French.
It's a brand new French movie. This was actually one of Corey's favorite movies this year. He went hog wild over it a little bit to surprise me. But this is one of those action ones where it's just constant velocity. And it follows this guy who's a male nurse or intern or something. I don't know, he works at a hospital and wears a candy striper suit.
He's like a nurse in training.
Yeah,
he just
he's
hasn't
getting
been
ready
certified.
to take his nurse's test.
He's a pre-nurse.
Yes, he's a pre-nurse.
Well, I kind of like that. There should be somewhere that should go, but I got nothing. But anyway, so he's a pre-nurse with his pregnant wife waiting at home, played by Elena, and he's in there taking care of this gangster that in the very beginning of the film we see get basically shot and presumably killed, but apparently not, because now he's in the hospital, named Hugo, and this guy Samuel is just trying to get through his goddamn day.
Yeah.
But Hugo gets on the phone to his compatriots, has them kidnap this nurse's wife, and says, look, either you help me get out of this hospital into this place because all these other guys are trying to kill me, or we're going to kill your wife.
Yeah, well, basically what happens is while Hugo is in the hospital, somebody comes in and cuts his air tube.
Yeah.
And the only reason he survives is because this male nurse guy notices it and saves his life.
Yeah, only to have that shoved back in his...
Yeah, and he pays for that because this compatriot of Hugo's kidnaps his wife and basically says, get him out of the hospital or, we'll kill your wife. So he does that.
Yeah, and it should be noted that that Hugo was brought to the hospital with no ID, so the cops are still trying to figure out who he is. They don't know he's a gangster yet. He's just a John Doe at this point.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a really cool thing as they figure out who he is and the cops are coming in. The male nurse is trying to smuggle him out at the same time.
Tension! Suspense!
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved the way this thing was filmed. It was so high velocity. The only thing I could think of to compare it to was Run Lola Run, really, in the way that it just felt like, even when the soundtrack, like it had a heartbeat that was constantly going of somebody who's like out of breath.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a second in the film, even when they slow down to talk, that there's not some kind of beat going on there that's letting you know
It's driving the
that,
plot.
Holy shit, we've got to hurry this along. And,
Absolutely.
And you will. It's a short film.
Sure, it's only like 84 minutes.
Yeah. But
and I am going to very respectfully, of course, disagree with you a little bit. You said it didn't really feel like a French film. I feel like there's this new niche of these like action-y French films like this. And in fact, the director, a guy named Fred Cavier, the film that he did before this was a film called Anything for Her, which is a great film, which got turned into The Next 3 Days here in America.
Oh, okay.
With Russell Crowe.
With Russell Crowe and Elizabeth Banks
Yeah.
by Paul Haggis. And they actually kind of screwed with some of his plot points, and I like Fred Cavier's version a lot better. There was a film that Warner Brothers just picked up the rights to remake that played fantastic for this year called Sleepless Night.
Yeah.
That's very similar.
Very similar.
It's a dirty cop, on the run and just keeps moving, and I feel like they're starting to be kind of a lot of these French gangster films that are they're real short but heart pounding.
What's the name of that new? It's the French cinema that's referred to as being sort of the cinema of the extreme, which is I'm blanking the name, and they don't normally count the horror films among them, but there's a large argument now about that. Should we count them, or is that its totally own thing?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say this is one of those that don't feel like regular French cinema to me.
Sure.
Well, I
it's
think
in this niche.
It is this new. It's definitely a new thing.
Well, and I think to combine what both of you are saying, I think the reason that we're seeing so many of these is because they're actively breaking away from that kind of French label. Like when you talk about a French film, you have a certain expectation, and I feel like it started with District B13, where it was like suddenly they were making like really amazing action films, breaking away from like you're not going to be bored anymore watching French films. Like,
Sure,
sorry, you're not going to be bored.
I'm fairly certain Jill Lelouch, I believe, was also in a film called Tell No One.
Oh, yeah, that's a great movie. Yeah.
Which is a great little French action film, which is actually based on an American book. It's an American author by the name of Harlan Coben, who did a great book series with a guy named Myron Boliter, which I believe the first one of those is being made into an American film now. But he did several like one-off thriller books, and the French picked up on it and made a great little thriller out of it.
Well, you know what? I'm going to move us along.
Yeah, sorry. So that was kind of Point Blank and other French films.
No, but it's good. We go on. That's what we do here. We find connecting
so
things.
Yes, if you like Point Blank, check out all those other titles that we talked about.
And you should like Point. You will like Point Blank.
You should check out Point Blank. Absolutely.
It's super fun. It's not boring for even a second. It's it's one of the films that nobody got to see this year because it didn't play very many theaters in America, but you'll see it in 2012 at some point.
Definitely.
If not by renting it or buying it, then from the giveaway, the first giveaway. Because I've got 2 copies on DVD of Point Blank to give away to you fuckers. And I don't know. What should the code word for that be? I don't know. Fuckers?
How about frogs, since we're talking about so many French films?
Oh, man.
You insulting motherfucker.
That's a racist.
Well, yeah, but now we're going to be like seeing all the people who are perfectly willing to insult the French to get a free DVD.
There you go.
Probably including some of the people who've given us shit for insulting other races.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Even the playing field a little bit.
Everybody gets it. Don't you understand?
We're equal opportunity insulters.
Yeah, we hate everyone. As Emo Phillips, the comedian, said, why hate someone because of their race or their religion or the color of their skin when there's so many really fantastic reasons to hate everybody?
Much better reasons to hate.
Anyway, so send me a text message when you see me put the name Point Blank in the comments of some other either podcast or news post on Spill that goes up after this remote viewing does. And then send me the time that I posted it, the thing I posted it in, the name of the movie, and the code word. Don't forget the code word. What's the code word?
Frogs.
Frogs. Kill frogs. And I'll send you Point Blank or one of the 2. So we'll have 2 winners on that one. And make sure to check the remote viewing group. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. Probably because if anything else, Luke's throat clearly knows it. We're going to get some Ricola. Hey, we're back. We're going to talk about some animated shows. You got nothing, Luke?
I don't know why we're in the South.
Buzzing.
I've said before, the only accent I could do is Southern, and I tried and tilt it just enough to not make it sound Southern, but it doesn't work. So.
Yeah, but you can only do it when you tell people you're doing a Scottish accent, which is the weird part.
The funny is, when I get really drunk on whiskey, and I'm not like excited about something, I'm just like, hey, it's all good. I slip into like, sounding like Sam Elliott and The Big Lebowski.
Sometimes you eat the bar, sometimes the bar eat you.
I've been living here long enough that the Yankee is pretty much just gone.
He's been beaten out of you and dragged behind a a pickup truck.
Exactly. But we're back, and we're going to be talking about there's a lot of animated sets that came out this month.
Ton of animated stuff.
And you know what? I don't see any reason to stand on tradition here and let's just go to the one that I think I can say across the board was our favorite, and that is Archer.
Hell yeah.
Season 2. Now, people who listen to League of Extremely Ordinary Gentlemen will know that we're sizable fans of Archer already, like to the point of it probably seeming a little crazy.
Yeah, on a bench called.
You start talking to us about it at spill.com and get that look in our eyes that says, Danger Zone! Danger Zone! But this is Archer Season 2, and they hadn't put out Season 1 before in Blu-ray, which in fact, simultaneous with this release on DVD and Blu-ray of Season 2, they have re-released Season 1 on Blu-ray.
Oh, we picked it up, definitely.
Oh, did you? Okay, fair enough. So for those people who are like, I'm sorry, I don't buy regular DVDs anymore, just only the top quality, you can now get both seasons that way. But you know what? Archer is one of those shows that kind of came out of left field for me because I was not watching the previous shows by Adam Reed, like C-Lab 2021 and stuff. I'm forgetting the other big show he did right before this. I feel terrible. I'm blanking.
Yeah, I feel like I should know.
Frisky Dingo.
No idea.
Liam kept telling me that it was great, and I'd like, okay, I'll have to take your word for it. I don't have time to watch much animated shows. Mm-hmm. But spy stuff? On FX, okay, first off, FX for me is like, hey, it's playing on FX, I'll watch it.
Yeah, they really have become a powerhouse of great content.
Yeah, they're like HBO back in the day for me, where it was like, hey, if they were putting it on, then you should probably at least give it a try. It's got an 80% chance of being awesome. And right off the bat, the show it nailed it. For those few of you out there who don't know, and
we pity you.
God bless you. You're so sweet. Like, look how cute that little guy is out there who hasn't seen Archer yet. It's adorable.
Man, we're being really pedantic right now.
I just want to pinch his cheeks. Anyway, it's set in the International Secret Intelligence Service, or ISIS, in New York City, where egocentric spy Sterling Archer, sort of the head spy of the agency, has to deal with his relationship with the boss, his mom. Oh shit, I got the wrong list here. Sorry, hold on. His mom, played by Jessica Walter from Arrested Development, Mallory, who is the worst possible person. She's playing her character from Arrested Development.
Pretty much.
Yeah, the mom on Arrested Development. So you're like, wow, why would you want her to run a spy agency? H. John Benjamin is one of the most prolific guys working in voice acting today.
Was so good on home movies.
Who never does voices. He just does his own voice.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, wow, that's like the greatest voice ever. Just do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he once again is playing...
There's not a big jump from Coach McGurk to Archer.
No.
He's just doing his own voice. But he has such a theatric type voice, such a great radio type voice that I think it comes through pretty well.
Well, he's a huge egomaniac, and to some level well-deserved, because he is truly a very competent spy, but he's such a hedonist that he ends up stepping on his own feet all the time because of that.
He's one of those guys that's like... He's really good at what he does, but he gets distracted by the fact that... Well, he gets distracted by, I don't know, things like well-made turtlenecks and fine scotch and beautiful women.
He's Jason Murphy, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. And he has to work with Lana Kane, who's another, probably better than he is, secret agent, played by Aisha Tyler, who is one of the most astonishing women working in comedy right now. For the record.
It doesn't hurt that she's fucking gorgeous.
She looks just like her character on the show in real life. It's crazy. Like, wow, that's her.
She is a total knockout.
She has her own podcast. It's very fun.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen her on... She did a stint on Friends for a while, but I mean, this girl is so beautiful. She's in a fucking Kanye video.
Yeah, that's how you know.
But yeah, it's funny. She's about my age. She's like 40 or so, and she loves single malt scotches, and she's like really into partying hard still, and she's a total geek. Oh my god.
Yeah,
she's
she really
such
is.
a geek. And she's like, why aren't we married? And the reason is because she's been married to her high school sweetheart.
I keep sending you dead animals and bloody tributes, and why aren't we married yet?
You know what? That's really sweet, though. I didn't know that. That's very sweet.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Good for her.
I mean, I still lust after her, but that's very sweet.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. I'd still totally nail her. I'd be like, I feel a little bit bad about this, but, come on, you got to know.
He's going to keep sending her chunks of his hair and love letters.
You might as well put a stop to it by just, doing the deed. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, this also stars Chris Parnell, Judy Greer, Amber Nash. I mean, it's got a really good cast of extra people. And Jeffrey Tambor has been a reoccurring role on this. There's so many good people who appear on the show. And Season 2 took everything that was great about Season 1 and upped the ante. It just, wow.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember us going, the only bad thing about this Season 2 getting ready to start is that our anticipation is so high. It can't
We were
possibly
so
live up.
afraid we were going to be let down.
Yeah, and then it just supersedes it entirely.
It roundhouse kicked our faces. It was amazing.
It totally did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to say there's this running joke in Season 2 about where he loses his hearing in one ear because of a gunshot too close to his ear. And he keeps coming back to it in later episodes where he keeps putting his finger in his ear and going, "Ma, ma, ma." I'm sorry, I like want to belly laugh now just thinking about it. It's just so fucking funny. And there's, believe it or not, the funniest episode that has to do with cancer ever written on television or anywhere.
It's such a weird thing to say, but yeah, it is the funniest cancer episode. It's a very special episode.
2 episodes even.
Yes, yeah. They are very, very special episodes in that you will be laughing at a terminal illness.
Yeah, well, because basically Mallory thinks she might have breast cancer, and then Archer decides that he should be checked, and turns out he has breast cancer, which, for a guy who's all male ego,
a
little bit.
It's a little hard to swallow.
Yeah, a little hard.
Phrasing.
But I can't recommend this series more. It's beautiful looking anyway. The animation has actually taken a significant upturn in quality in Season 2. They're definitely taking the time to oh, hey, we want to do an action scene, and then giving its own unique look.
Yeah. Well, that and the action scenes got bigger.
Yeah,
the sequences
really
got bigger.
They did. It's funny. I want to just take a second here, and I know we don't have that much time to go on and on about stuff, but we got to watch a little bit of season 3.
Oh my god.
Which I don't know why they sent to me in advance of airing, because it doesn't even come out. Actually, what does it say for the first episode there, Luke?
January 19th.
January 19th is when the first episode airs, and drop everything you're doing and see the
Don't
first
DVR
episode
it. Just be home and watch it, because you will wet your pants laughing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that there's a Burt Reynolds appears in it in a guest starring role, but that's all I'm gonna say. You're gonna wow! I've watched.
Oh my God, Burt Reynolds!
I've watched it 3 times already, and I laugh more each time.
Yeah, I mean, now we have an episode of Archer with Burt Reynolds in it. It's as if they were like, and Brian gets a blowjob as well, because we're packaging this episode just for him.
It's like they're actually like just listening to everything you say and do, and going, you know what? Maybe we should write the next Archer episodes more for Brian.
It really does feel like they have been listening to Killer Bees.
All right, so moving on. That's Archer. Once again, season 2 available on Blu-ray now, as is season 1.
Buy them both.
Yeah, seriously, you're not going to regret it. It's so great. But what's the next animated box set that just came out?
Oh my goodness. Well, I tell you what, the latest Family Guy, which I believe is Volume 9.
Yes, it is. Although not Season 9.
No, it's Volume 9.
First 6 episodes of Season 9?
I don't know exactly how they break them down
They're
anymore.
doing that totally retarded thing that a lot of these animated things do, where they're not like American Dad's the same way. For a while, The Simpsons was, I think, but they got back on track. Where the volume and the season are 2 completely different things. Like they're split down the middle for reasons that are totally unclear.
It just makes it difficult to know if you're a fan, to know if you have all the episodes. And
yeah,
frankly,
it's the remaining 11 episodes of season 8 that were left over from volume 8, and then the first 3 episodes of season 9.
Which I hate to say it. Okay, and I hate to say it, but as divisive as Family Guy has become, and as this growing anti-Family Guy movement is spreading, like, really not a good idea to further complicate things by making it difficult for the few remaining diehard fans you have to have complete seasons of the show that they like.
Yeah. I'm
sorry, are there people around that still like this show?
Yeah, I know you're a giant Family Guy detractor, but I was a supporter of theirs for a long, long time.
I liked them when they were funny. I just feel like they've stopped being funny.
I feel like it's the same show it always has been, but that's not a good thing, really, as far as like keeping on watching. If I was a new guy coming to Family Guy, you could watch this season, you could watch a previous season. It really wouldn't matter. They'd both be probably equally funny to you. But it's like any joke. When you hear it enough times, it's going to be like, okay, I'm ready for a new joke.
Yeah.
And at this point, for me personally, I mean, I kind of feel that way with the Simpsons, too. That it's like, oh my God, I am so hyper familiar with this style of joke and this series of jokes and the same reoccurring things you keep coming back to that it's just lost its entertainment value largely.
Right. And the interesting thing about Volume 9 is I think it's a great litmus test. If you've never seen an episode of Family Guy before and you're not sure which side of the fence you're going to fall on, watch this edition, Volume 9, because there's a lot of its classic jokes, the stuff that a lot of the reference stuff that it did in the beginning to kind of earn its wings. And then there's also the weird conceptual shit that they've been doing lately. Some of it which works really well, and some of it which is just unbearably bad. And the episode I'm referring to in the latter sense is the one where Stewie and Brian get trapped in a bank vault. And there's not really a lot of jokes in it at all. It's this weird sort of airing of grievances type thing. Like, you know that sitcom plot device where people who are fighting get trapped somewhere overnight and they work everything out? It's like that, except there wasn't one specific thing they were fighting about. It was just like we're going to talk about our relationship over the years, and it's intentionally devoid of a lot of traditional Family Guy humor just to fuck with the audience. And that's something that I feel like Seth MacFarlane is doing a lot now, where he's like, oh, you think you thought it was bad before, well, now I'm just going to fuck with you. And it's like, no, Seth, that's the wrong approach to...
Now, let me ask you, this did not include partial terms of endearment, right?
Partial terms of endearment?
Yeah, where Lois gets an abortion.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, the last episode of the season 8 was called Partial Terms of Endearment. It did air, and there was a fuck ton of controversy about it, which seems like Seth MacFarlane would be like, good, fuck you, what's going on the set. But as near as I can tell from reading about it, it looks like it was not included.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
It says right here, but it was released on DVD September 28th.
Oh, was it? Or was that the season or the episode, though?
I think
this
that maybe
episode has been refused. Yeah, because Fox didn't air it in the U.S. It only aired in the U.K.
I see. Okay.
Australia and the Netherlands, it looks like.
Fair enough. Okay.
I don't remember it being on this set, and I will admit I didn't watch every last episode. I watched the vast majority of them, like right down to the last disc, but I do not remember that episode being on there.
See, I want to see the set now, and the thought that it's on there because I'm like, wow, an episode that never aired in the U.S. because it was too controversial.
Yeah, I mean, and that's possible. Like, they had that very early on. You remember that episode when you wish upon a Weinstein?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which they couldn't air because of all the Jewish jokes.
Yeah, yeah.
Which now seems so tame in comparison to the shit they've gotten away with in later seasons.
Blue Christmas.
Or Blue Christmas. Yeah, no shit, Blue Christmas. So, yeah, but it's one of those weird things. Like, I think the best episodes on the set is the murder mystery episode, which actually I think originally incorporated several episodes because it's really long. But there's a lot of great stuff in there, not only in classic Family Guy style, but also in references to those great old murder house type mysteries.
What, Family Guy doing referencing?
I know, but
that's crazy.
It's different because it's more in what is happening and not what they cut away to.
It's always the giant chicken.
Yeah, it's always the giant. It's written by manatees, apparently.
The first 18 times I saw Peter fight the giant chicken, I thought it was hysterical.
Right.
A little over it now.
And guess what? There is a callback to that fucking joke again in this volume.
Well, that's Family Guy Volume 9, but for the record, through the magic of the internet, we can confirm that the partial terms of endearment does appear on that Volume 9 set.
Okay, shit, how did I miss that?
Okay, fair enough. I actually want to see that now just to check that out. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Let's say, and that was, once again, Family Guy Volume, not season, but Volume 9. All right, so I guess the next thing that we come to really is The Simpsons, which, it's like...
No, I'm sorry. It says excluding. I read excluding and thought it meant including.
Damn it, Luke.
It's not like flammable and inflammable. They mean different things.
That's true, but it did say it got a release, so maybe it's like a standalone release of some type.
No, I'm just happy because I'm like, how did I miss that fucking episode? So I'm glad it wasn't actually on there.
We will find the answer to that.
Apparently, we're going to have to illegally download it. So I want to buy it. Where is it? Give it to me. But you're not making this easy for me, Seth.
The opinions of remote viewing don't necessarily reflect those of remote viewing.
It's true.
Or Cyrus, Luke, or Brian.
No, it's not. I did not just say that. Monkey possessing me again.
Damn it, monkey.
When are you going to download some more Animal Planet, damn it?
Fuck you, cat. Anyway, it's love, trust me. So The Simpsons, this is the 14th season. It's what, on season 25 now?
Yes, 25.
But they're going back and they're re-releasing them all the early ones, one at a time on Blu-ray. And people are like, what's taking so long? They're taking their time about making sure that they look fucking fantastic and adding a shit ton of extras on every single one.
Oh, and by the way, there's 25 seasons! That's what's taking so long.
Well, I mean, it's The Simpsons. It's one of the most consistently popular shows. Now, I know what you're saying. A lot of you out there are like, so bored of The Simpsons, yada, yada, yada. Well, that's because you watched it for 7 or 8 years, and like we were saying earlier, you're like, okay, I get it, move on. Simpsons, actually, I came to this point where I was like, I need to stop watching this every week, and I need to start just catching it when it happens to be on.
Yeah.
You know? And then it's fucking hysterical to me. I'm like, I love the show, but if you keep trying to, you can't overindulge in The Simpsons.
Sure.
This type of show. You really can't. You know, it's not a show that you sit and you marathon your way through. And this is one of the best sets to get because, all right, so around season 9 of The Simpsons, they changed showrunners, and it really started to go downhill pretty fast.
Yeah.
That's when the famous dumbing of Homer started.
Yeah, it was really starting to lag behind.
It did, and it had a sizable period of pretty weak episodes that were getting progressively worse. And then they changed showrunners in season 13, and it started to pick up again. And season 14 was actually pretty significantly a very remarkable and very well thought of season.
There's a lot of great episodes in season 14.
And it's fun. One of the fun things about the set is that, all right, so every set's given a theme sort of to go with, and this one is Treehouse of Horror, which, let's face it, come on, we're horror fans. Love the Treehouse of Horror. The box, the menus, which are fucking great here with Treehouse of Horror stuff. I mean, it's filled with really neat stuff like that. And this is the Treehouse, the actual episode that comes in the season is the one with the ghost of Maud Flanders. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
And the one and it's got the Dr. Hibbert as Dr. Moreau episode.
Yep.
Oh man, it's a really, really good one. And if that's not enough, the extras actually come with several more older Treehouse of Horror episodes added.
I don't care how old the show gets. I don't care how much the rest of it, even if it gets to be really terrible, I will watch Treehouse of Horror every single year because that shit always makes me laugh.
Absolutely. No, it's such great horror parody. It really is, or sci-fi as
Even
well.
even when the Treehouse of Horror episodes are weak, it's still better than most of the animated shit on TV.
This was a hell of a season. It had a lot of really neat stuff. I mean, this had. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember. This is a long time ago now, but when Marge accidentally gets breast implants.
The breast implants? Yes.
Large Marge was the name of the episode, and like the whole town is like. "Ugh!"
I remember I remember a musical number that went along with it that it basically ended with Homer just like Homer going, "And they're all mine." Yeah, I remember that. It was pretty badass.
And in fact, there was another episode that was very funny that season as well. She starts taking steroids and working out. Do you remember that? Starts becoming a neighborhood vigilante.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite episode actually of this season is it's called The Great Louse Detective. Mm-hmm. Somebody's trying to kill Homer, so they have to get Sideshow Bob to help him out to figure out who's trying to kill him. And then by the end, Sideshow Bob helps him solve the mystery. But because he's Sideshow Bob, the cops just assume he did it, so they throw him back in jail.
Spoiler.
Oh, yeah, sorry, spoiler alert.
You son of a bitch.
I figured people had seen it by now.
All right, so then it's got the How I Spent My Strummer Vacation, where Homer goes to Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp with Mick Jagger, Keith Richards,
God, yeah.
Lenny Kravitz, Elvis Costello, Brian Setzer, and Tom Petty, all doing voices. I mean, that's pretty landmark even for The Simpsons for having guest stars. It was actually a really solid fucking season. Mm-hmm. And, like I said, to say, hey, this is worth actually owning, they gave a commentary for every single episode.
That's impressive.
Not what you usually do for animated stuff. At best, you'll usually see the first 10 minutes of an episode might have some commentary. But the full commentary every episode, 4 of which are with Matt Groening, but the rest are as an assortment of people. And the unheard of, they bring in some of the guest stars for the commentary.
Damn.
Weird Al Yankovic is on one of them. I know. Wow. And Tony Hawk is on one of them.
Dude.
That's bizarre.
Really impressive.
What a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know how it is lately, but I remember the older seasons of, like, South Park. Matt and Trey would do commentaries literally for about a minute and a half, and then just go, okay, we're done. And just stop talking. Like, the commentary would be a minute and a half into the episode.
Oh, I forgot. This is also the season where Flanders ends up getting laid by the hot Hollywood hottie voiced by Marissa Tomei.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's got his whole, like, I don't know, but I was married before.
My wife died.
And God!
And God! Which is a great argument.
Yeah, well, it works for Flanders usually, so... Anyway, that's Simpsons season 14. I know as cynical as we can be about these things, this really was one of the returns to form. And like I said, for people who love Treehouse of Horror as much as I do, this is the season to pick up. It has several of the previous best ever Treehouse of Horror episodes, including this 3D CGI world one. Yeah. So and a lot, in fact, there's a montage of appearances by Kang and Kodos. There's all these special stuff that entirely has to do with Treehouse of Horror. So totally worth picking up. Now, what do we got next, Brian Salisbury?
The next animated show from the same creator is Futurama,
yes.
which had its 6th volume come out. 6th volume?
It did, and once again, it's split up between seasons. And it's just, why are you doing this to us?
Damn you!
Blame Fox.
Well, in this case, it's not even Fox, because Futurama is now Comedy Central.
It got moved.
Yeah, it got canceled. It got canceled from Fox about 2 seasons ago, and now it is running on Comedy Central. And if you ask me, it's funnier now.
Fox put out the Blu-ray.
Oh, shut up!
I win.
I think they own Comedy Central anyway.
Well, yeah, but
I don't know.
But I agree with you. Since they moved over to Comedy Central, they have been getting better and better, and
so much funnier.
And they're sharper, and they're able to make references to... It's funny, when you watch Futurama, like the earlier episodes, there's technology that has improved since that show came on that has now worked its way back into the future of Futurama.
Oh, yeah. It is consistently funny. Its satire is always... It's much more topical than The Simpsons is, it seems to me. Like, The Simpsons always seems like it's a couple years behind, and Futurama seems to be right on top of things.
Yeah.
And more of the South Park tradition of, oh, shit, they're talking about this now, we need to get on it.
Well, hell, one of their earliest episodes when they came to Comedy Central was about the release of the new iPhone, except that it was a phone that they literally implanted into people's eyes.
Yeah.
Which was funny.
Well, this volume 6, which, like I said, is actually a cross between episodes of season 5 and 6, I believe. is filled with a lot of really good stuff. But my favorite, there's all right. So I'm trying to find the actual episode, and it's hard to online because, like I said, they're all
because they keep splitting them.
They keep splitting them up, and it's fucking frustrating as hell. But there's an episode where they have to. It's a Moby Dick thing, and they have to deal with a giant space whale that travels between dimensions.
It kind of has a portal thing going on.
Yeah, and it's hysterical, and it's so clever, and it's got this really brilliant. It's episode 2 on the set. And it's got this really brilliant animation, like really neat stuff it does, playing with time and space things. It's like, wow, this is, even for Futurama, this is pretty groundbreaking stuff, actually. Hey, it's another set from these guys that is brilliant. It's, as much as I was saying I'm bored of The Simpsons, on the long term, I can actually still marathon Futurama and
absolutely
go straight through it. It still has so much yet to do that hasn't gotten a chance to do yet, and they are continually expanding this set of characters. I actually think it's about time for them to maybe add another character. It feels like shaking things up a little bit by adding someone new. This is the time to do it, but what do I know? I'm on remote viewing, not on the staff of Fox writing Futurama.
Hint, hint, hint.
Yeah, what the fuck, Fox? Keep sending you emails. Wait, did I send you the right email?
I don't know. I've been sending mine to the asylum.
You didn't send your Aisha Tyler email to Fox, did you?
I think that's what happened.
Oh.
That would actually explain a lot of the weird gift packages I've been getting from Fox lately.
Ah, damn it.
Yeah.
And why Aisha Tyler wouldn't send you the Futurama set?
Yeah, I know, right?
Seriously, you got it. Send it to us.
But you know what? Speaking of that, guess
Giveaway.
what? I've got a giveaway!
Giveaway!
I have a copy of Futurama Vol.6 here to give away on Blu-ray. It's fucking awesome. What more do you want? Come on, go. Let's hear it, people. Let's get just a little plot at home.
Woo! Futurama!
I'm gonna fucking give you this shit. I'm gonna send it to you personally. It's gonna be great. You're gonna love it as much as I did. Like I said, I couldn't put it down. I was supposed to be doing something else, and all I did was watch Futurama that day because of this fucking set. It was in my house. But I will, if you want, send me an email. I'll lick it or something first if you want before I send it to you. That way you can even have my collectible DNA.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Collect the entire Spill Crew's DNA.
Are there people that want that?
No, I hope not.
Okay.
Jesus, I haven't checked the store in a while, but Jesus, I hope not.
But what should be the code word for this one, Luke?
Zoidberg.
Zoidberg. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
So, as before, you remember the rules. I hope by this point you remember the rules. And if you didn't, that means you're skipping around because someone posted the time codes. And shame on you!
Yeah.
So follow the rules or you ain't getting shit.
Play by our rules or else.
I believe that's the last of the animated ones, isn't it?
I believe so.
I think it is.
I think we're done with the animated block.
All right, let's take a real brief break, and we'll be back with something else.
Woo!
With more stuff, because, oh, man, we still got so much stuff to go through.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so yes, we are going to actually talk about films that came out this year and are out on Blu-ray.
We are going to talk about films you know the name of.
Yes. Well, you probably knew some of these names, but here are the ones you definitely know because you've heard us do the reviews for Spill this year. And, okay, so we're going back and probably covering ground the main site's already covered. But you know what? We're letting you know these are out already, so you can run and see them. You're like, you probably heard the review in February for some of this stuff and went, oh, I got to see that when it comes out on Blu-ray. And then, you got busy with the whole murdering hookers thing. I know how that gets. It's like there's only so much quicklime you can pick up at Home Depot in one stop before the cops start asking questions.
This is true. And until they make Dead Hooker Depot, there were a lot of movies that came out in 2012 in theaters, a lot of big releases. So it's impossible to see all of them. I mean, even as somebody who is kind of sort of a film critic, I missed a lot of the movies in theaters and had to catch them later.
I saw all of them.
That's why I called myself a kind of sort of. Not on the same level yet. We'll get there.
Only because, nobody's paying you to see every single movie. I have
true.
to see Jack and Jill. You, however, do not.
That's true.
A mixed blessing at both, at best. Indeed. So let's start off with Jack and... No, I'm not. I would never promote that film in any way past what we've already done. Which is to promote that it gets buried in the same landfill with copies of E.T. for Atari.
I'm going to find that fucking landfill.
Proud owner of that Atari cartridge right here.
I bet you are.
I am.
Strangely, they're still cheap to buy.
They
are, actually.
You would think that so many got destroyed and thrown out over the years because it's such a bad game that they would be actually super rare, like happens sometimes with that sort of thing. But no. You can. There's a place right down the street from here. You can buy them for like $5.
Game Over has all these vintage games, and a lot of them are, because of their rarity, more expensive than you think an old game would be, but still like $1.50 for the ET cartridge.
By the way, when you guys come to town, if you're into vintage game, Game Zone is one of the best places I hear in the country now for buying classic game stuff.
Game Zone?
Yeah, or is it Game Zone?
Game Over.
Game Over.
Game Over.
Game
I'm sorry,
Over.
Yeah.
Which is like they've even got a museum.
They do.
Featuring like every single console that there was.
Including the Power Glove.
I know.
Oh, I want that Power
I
Glove.
know. You know, I found out to my chagrin that it was not actually designed to masturbate with. So.
Yeah, I know it. Well, you learn that the hard way.
Yeah. Well, I had that and that, like, you know, it's hard to look at porn that's like all red and vector. So when I had the virtual Game Boy, it was like mixed with that.
Yeah, Virtual Boy porn was not very good.
It's not very good. No, it was not. But anyway, let's actually go to what we're here
What the
for.
fuck were we talking about?
We were talking about the movies that actually came out this year, the bigger films. And let's go ahead and start with the one that, it's funny, it kind of got the short shrift, I felt, this year. It wasn't mentioned anywhere near as much as I would have thought that it would have been on top 10 lists. It's a movie called The Debt, which is directed by John Madden, not the...
You see, the thing is, when you make a spy movie...
I think we actually made the joke during the original review. It's like, man, I wish there was a part in here when they were explaining the plot that somebody started drawing X's and O's and lines.
That would have
on the
helped.
screen.
I mean, it was a pretty intricate plot.
It's a pretty complicated plot. That was my point. But it was written by Matthew Vaughn, Jane Goldman, and Peter Strawn, so it's a really strong, it's got a lot going for it right from the get-go. Mm-hmm. But it's a remake of a very popular 2007 Israeli film of the same name.
That I didn't know, actually.
Performed very well, which makes sense since it's all about Mossad agents.
Right.
Which is, of course, the Israeli Secret Service. And in this particular film, you've got actors who are playing younger and older versions of the same character. Mm-hmm. You've got Helen Mirren as Rachel Singer, and Jessica Chastain is the younger 1960s version of Rachel Singer.
I really wish Jessica Chastain had worked more this year. I mean, you didn't see her enough. She only did like 7 movies.
She's actually doing the dishes right now. Believe it or not. I don't mean that in a controversial way. I mean like she's like was bored for 3 seconds. Said, "Hey, do you mind if I?"
Yeah, this is a woman who cannot rest for any given period of time.
Yeah, it's all she does is just work. You've got now. I never can remember how. I get explained to me 1,000 times how to pronounce Ciarán Hinds' name. And
I've always said Syrian.
That's how I pronounced it. We may be wrong,
but it's got an accent grave.
It does.
That has to mean something.
Well, then it's Ciarán Hinds.
He plays David Peretz, and Sam Worthington plays the young version of that character. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Tom Wilkinson as Stephen Gold, and the young version of that is Martin. Don't even get me started.
Okay, one thing I want to say before we get too much into this movie, the one thing that bothered me about this movie is the fact that Sam Worthington. Oh no, go back. I'm gonna get confused otherwise. Sam Worthington playing the young version of Ciarán Hinds. He doesn't look like the young version of Ciarán Hinds. Yeah. He looks like the young version of Tom Wilkinson.
None of these characters look like... That was the biggest criticism this film had, and that we had. None of the young characters look like their older
See,
version.
I bought Jessica Chastain and Helen Mirren, and I feel like if you switched Worthington and Martin Sakas... Yeah, I probably fucked that up.
Yeah.
If you just switched those two guys as to which older Andy Seaton was theirs... It would have been fine.
They just need to make Andy Serkis play everything.
CG that shit. Mocap it.
Seriously, come on. Did you see Rise of the Planet of the Apes? Come on.
You should, and we will get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll talk about that more. Anyway, the story here is about these guys who are Mossad agents, and this is based loosely on the real story of how the Mossad went into Argentina in the 60s and kidnapped Adolf Eichmann, like without the permission of anybody, and brought him back to...
Who was, of course, a famous Nazi war criminal.
Brought him back to Israel and had a war crime and then hung the guy, as he well deserved.
Sure.
I'm not much for the death penalty, but, when it comes to Nazis,
I
go... Fucking load up, Dr. Jones.
Yeah, I was like, if we can't kill them with fire from the Ark of the Covenant, you might as well just hang them.
Yeah, you're a Nazi. Sorry, end of story. But they're out for a fictional one, Dieter Vogel, played by Jesper Christensen, known as the Surgeon of Birkenau. And that part takes place in the 60s, as we're seeing them have this elaborate plan to kidnap this guy, which they do, in fact, do. The problem is, as we find out early on, is that, in fact, he got away. And all these years, they've been claiming that they killed him.
Yeah, it's basically one of those, well, he's obviously going to go underground, so if we just don't tell anybody we fucked up, they'll never know.
They'll never know. Now, here it is modern day, and the problem is, and they're all older, and the problem is it turns out that he's starting to pop up. Like, there's word that there's an old guy in a nursing home that is claiming to be him, and oops!
We may need to take care of that. And the funny thing is they're actually getting a lot of accolades and book deals and all this weird stuff now that this, situation is over and they're older.
Celebrated Mossad agents.
Yeah, for what they've done, and they're still keeping quiet, and then it just becomes one of those situations where they have to decide if they're going to go and deal with it or just, try and ignore it until basically they die or this guy dies.
And the film is less about, it's less about this plot and telling a spy film than it is about dealing with the effect of having to keep a secret for that long.
Yeah.
And the guilt that's involved. And I think on that level, it really succeeds. I like that aspect of it.
I love
quite
this
a bit.
movie.
But I felt like the spy story was fractured to the point where it took away from the feeling of movement and velocity to it. Like, it kept going back and forth in time in a way that this sort of film shouldn't. This sort of story shouldn't. Yeah. And I had trouble keeping up my enthusiasm for that part of it.
See, but what I liked about it is actually kind of playing off of that would be the fact that it has that kind of old school spy plot, but its sensibilities are very much in that neo spy, like post Jason Bourne type spy movie where it's like things move with a certain rhythm, and there's usually like it's kind of like what we were talking about in Point Blank, where the music feels like it's following them, and every shot is kind of a jump from basically like showing their movements from one place to another, and it's all very fluid. It to me, the way it was shot and the way it was scored felt like a Jason Bourne movie. But I found the dynamic between these three characters and the way they work together so interesting that I wanted to see a whole series of movies just about the three younger counterparts.
Yeah.
Just, going on special missions, because it was just so fascinating to watch the three of them work.
Well, seeing those three actors together was actually pretty interesting. I thought they had a really good dynamic together. And once again, though, every time it cut away from it, I was like, ah!
Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
As far as that goes. But like I said, I didn't dislike the other part. That's when the part of the story that actually had a heart to it started affecting me, which was about dealing with the guilt of all this over these years and the moral implications, which I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm old, but I find that kind of story much more interesting.
Well, yeah, but no, that's what keeps it from being just a routine spy thriller, is that there is this emotional context to it that they keep cutting away to as these characters get older. And now, I loved this movie. I was really upset that I missed it when it was in theaters, but this is probably one of my favorites of the year.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about you, Luke? Did you get to see this one?
I haven't seen the movie, but I think that it sounds good.
Well, there you go. I'm pretty sure Brian's got a copy, so. Yeah, so fuck you, Cyrus. I believe Brian. No, it is very good. I liked it as well. Just maybe not as much as Brian. Well, definitely not as much as Brian. It's not going to make my top 10 list. Sorry, dude. But that's The Debt. Moving on. Let's move on to The Hangover Part 2. One of the best. Oh, wait. No, that's not what we're one of the best.
Nah.
One of the
existing movies of 2011.
You know what the thing is about The Hangover Part 2, though? It is the highest grossing R-rated comedy of all time.
Are you shitting me?
Of all time. It broke something like 8 opening weekend records as well. 35% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wait a minute. Wait. Is that because they're actually counting the numbers from the first Hangover and they've mistaken this one for the first Hangover?
No, it was huge overseas here.
God.
And it's baffling because, like I said, I mean, obviously critics don't always see eye-to-eye to audiences, but almost everyone I know who was not a critic, just a casual movie watcher, felt the exact same way I did. That it's a film that took the original formula of the Hangover. I mean, Ghostbusters 2 did. It totally took the script and it just said, okay, all right, so we're going to take out Bangkok for Vegas. We're going to put a monkey in the place of the tiger, a face tattoo for a missing tooth, a severed finger for a baby. It still takes place right before a wedding, and we'll have Mike Tyson show up and do something weird.
Yeah.
But how are we going to make it better? Oh, we'll make it much grosser.
Yeah.
Why does anyone want to see it be grosser?
They were writing such a fine line in the first one they were almost too crass, but they pulled it in just enough to be just thoroughly enjoyable. Yeah. And this one, they were like, no, fuck it, we're going completely over the edge. And I did not enjoy a single moment of this movie.
I liked it.
Here we go.
Says the guy who sounds like he just woke up in Bangkok after a night of partying.
Saying.
I love this. I love it when this happens. Luke, please explain.
Oh, I wouldn't say I loved it or anything, but I mean, at the expense of taking your criticism and turning it into a positive, I liked the first movie, and this was the first movie again.
Yeah.
It worked. The things that worked for me the first time around were still funny the second time around. Like, yes, I laughed at a tiger the first time, and I laughed at a monkey the second time, and I laughed at, Ken Jeong the first time, and I laughed at Ken Jeong's penis the second time. Like, I
thought this was the movie where Ken Jeong, for me, jumped the shark, absolutely.
Oh, he completely did, but I thought that was funny.
I was like, okay, enough Ken Jeong, Hollywood, please stop. Fuck. But you know what? It's funny because I kind of agree with you, because I was not the world's biggest fan of the first one. I liked it, but then the whole rest of the world went, yeah, and freaked out, and I was like, okay, you're making me like it less by how much you're freaking out over this movie. You like it too much. It's not that good. It's good, but not great. And I thought this one, if I had seen this before the first one, I would have felt exactly the same way I did with the first one.
Look, here's the deal. These are both big budget comedies. Like, nobody's winning an Oscar for either of these fucking films. They have one goal, and that's to make you laugh. And if they succeed in that, great. And I think The Hangover, the first part, obviously succeeded far more than this part did with both critics and audiences. But, you know, for me, I didn't laugh as much, but I still laughed.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of.
I think you just like it because Zach Galifianakis kind of resembles you in this movie.
Oh, shenanigans.
No, his I'm pretty sure Luke's dick has to be bigger.
Oh, sure. I meant more the hair and the beard situation.
You know, it's stuff like that though, where it's like it feels like it needs to denigrate its characters to that level that I really started getting distasteful for me as it went along. I mean, the first film, at least it felt like it liked its main characters, even though they were kind of douchey. They still were like, oh, you know how guys are. They go to Vegas. It was like, and here, it really, as it goes along, you start to really dislike these guys as people altogether.
And then the movie shows how much it hates them by just piling the shit on over and over again, to the point where by the end it's like, okay, I believed they were able to reconcile everything and kind of smooth everything over with the bride, but by the end of the second one, I'm like, no fucking way. You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah. And what is it? What's the name of the freaking guy, the nerdy guy? Ed Helms. Stu is married to like this total ridiculous Asian hottie who apparently was the most successful person ever to come out of the real world.
Oh, good, good.
You know, it's like somebody.
There's a feather in your cap.
Jamie Chung. She's so hot, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I mean, like it's not just the way that Stu looks, or Ed Helms as it was, but he's not Ed Helms. He's not big Hollywood celebrity Ed Helms who could hook up with a girl like that. He is a dentist who is a total nerd and not a terribly likable guy when it comes down to it. I mean, sure, he means well, but he has zero charisma. It's funny, like my suspension of disbelief for that. I could watch crazy fantasy sci-fi stuff and go, yeah, no problem. But that, I drew the line.
And it only gets less believable from there.
Yeah, it does, really. I wish this could have been better. I didn't think it was horrible, like I said, until Mike Tyson sings, which, jeez.
Hooray!
What do you mean, hooray? I'm still traumatized.
Karaoke fail.
Seriously, the worst ever. It was one of those, what were they thinking?
And I love that song. Sir, you have butchered a classic. Murray Head is turning over, and I don't know if he's dead, but he's still turning over in his grave.
Yeah, he went to his grave specifically to turn over in it. Yeah, I don't know if I'd like One Night in Bangkok as much as you do, but still. I don't know.
It's the creme de la creme of the chess world and a show with everything but Yul Brynner.
It's true. If it had Yul Brynner, it would have been even better. Anyway, let's move on, because I don't,
That was The Hangover.
That was The Hangover Part 2.
Now let's talk about another film that we're going to disagree about. Which is Cowboys and Aliens.
Aha!
Now, you probably heard a lot about how this isn't a very good film. You probably have. The internet was rife with people being very hyperbolic about how much they hated Cowboys and Aliens. And I would like to say, once again, reiterating what I did on the original review, that while they are being very exaggerated, they're right. It's not a very good movie, but it's not a totally terrible movie either. I think there's actually a lot going on here in this movie. I mean, it's Jon Favreau, so it's not like it's gonna be a fucking steaming pile of shit. All right, I know Iron Man 2, but shut up. And it's got Daniel Craig, Harrison Ford, Olivia Wilde. I mean, it's Cowboys versus Aliens. I mean, obviously it's got some benefit to it, but there's so much that just doesn't feel right. It's like, it's almost hard to put your finger on all the ways in which this film went wrong, more than just to say, I never really felt like I was with it.
Huh.
I mean, I guess part of the problem is that, like, it was based on a graphic novel that was written as nothing but a pitch for this movie. Like, it wasn't like, oh, this great graphic novel, Cowboys and Aliens. No, it was a really terrible graphic novel that was written entirely so this guy could get a movie deal who wrote it. And I didn't think the movie was much better than the graphic novel, really. Had some decent effects. I don't know. I know you guys disagree with
Well,
me,
yeah,
so-
I mean, I had heard, and this is another one I missed in theaters, and, you know, I hate talking about hype when it comes to, you know, your opinion of movies, because it's such a completely intangible thing, and ultimately doesn't mean much. But I went into this knowing how much everybody disliked it, so I was expecting it to. I don't know if that lowered my expectation or what.
Probably. Frankly, probably. It
But I went into it, and I from the get-go, I was like, all right, I'm having fun with this. This is really. I like the way it's shot. I like that Daniel Craig is this crazy, silent, violent animal.
Daniel Craig, Daniel Craig, okay, if you're unaware, Daniel Craig wakes up with this thing on his arm that you've seen in the trailer and has amnesia, more or less. He has no idea what the fuck happened to him. Instead of asking questions, he punches people.
His reaction to
Instead of
every
asking
stimulus.
more questions, he punches more people.
Yes,
I like that. I like that.
Anything that happens, he punches people.
Yeah.
That's one of the more absurd elements of the movie. Is his reaction to every single stimulus is to hurt something.
And the strongest thing about this film is actually Daniel Craig playing this very exaggerated cowboy, like, you know, a Clint Eastwood-esque type of character, as he has amnesia, doesn't remember anything about he was, but it seems pretty clear he was a bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, the studio actively marketed this as a sci-fi Unforgiven. Swear to God.
You're kidding.
No, I was reading about it. I was like, what? I don't remember seeing that. But yeah, in a lot of markets, that's how they were selling it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. That is not what this film is.
No, and actually, I just think it's a really fun concept, and I will say it runs out of steam a little bit in the third act. Yeah. But I loved it up to that point. I was having so much fun with it, and, like, I liked the idea. I always loved the idea of mixing sci-fi with a Western. I love that. And I thought the action sequences were great. I thought most everybody in the cast was doing a good job, although I thought Harrison Ford was phoning it in a little bit at
Really?
certain
Because
points.
I thought Harrison Ford was finally acting, and I was like,
There were moments where he
I was like, where the fuck were you during Crystal Skull shooting and shit? Harrison Ford actually enjoying himself on a movie set.
I get
know.
that feeling with Harrison, and I get that too. Although I thought that he was written badly for, I get the feeling he was really enjoying himself, and I think that's because he was in a Western. He's an old school Hollywood actor. He's probably was dying to get a chance to be in a Western.
Yeah.
I mean, is there another Harrison Ford Western? I mean,
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of. Maybe there is one. I just
we're
can't
gonna get called on it in the comment section, but I can't think of
But
one off
who
the top of my
wouldn't?
head.
Like, who wouldn't? Especially a guy, you know, he's in his 60s. He's a huge fan of film. He's a very much an outdoors man. You
Yeah,
know? I mean,
totally.
have you heard that story about how he rescued those hikers from a fire?
He's
in
a
helicopter?
real goddamn hero.
How awesome is that? Can you imagine you're in a fire? What are we going to do? We're going to die. Oh, no, look at the helicopter. And Harrison Ford.
Oh God, that hurts me.
Get in!
Get on my plane.
Come with me if you want to live. I know it's not Harrison Ford. But he could say it even better than Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Totally could.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that, you know, this was the type of film that Brian and I were watching, you know, while doing some other things. So it probably only got
Smoking crack?
75% of our attention.
No, I wouldn't even
But-
say. I would say it would be more like there was only a couple of plot points that I missed, and I actually went back and rewound, and they worked even when I saw them the second time. But one of the things that I thought was great about this movie was Sam Rockwell, who was like unstoppably funny out of nowhere. Like I did not expect his character to be the comic relief.
It's got so many great actors in this film who are underused. They're like Clancy Brown is in this film. Why wasn't there more Clancy Brown in this film? He's Clancy Brown, and there was too much Paul Dano. I'm like, I'm sorry, that kid freaks me out. There's
He freaks
something
you out, but
about
I liked him.
that.
in
He's
this.
a good actor, but
Did I
don't.
miss that? Because I
Yeah.
thought he got absconded with
Yeah,
early on.
That's
and-
too much Paul Dano already.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's talk
I
about
was
that.
like, he's not in the fucking movie very long.
I thought Olivia Wilde's really good in it, but there's a weird plot twist with her that I felt totally inorganic and just plain silly as fuck.
It was
love it.
It was silly.
I love it.
But that was one of my like junk food cinema type moments where I'm like, this is retarded, but it's kind of funny.
The number one thing I liked about this movie was Walton Goggins, who's a bandit,
Yeah.
an old friend of Daniel Craig's character. But once again, their story was like that was the one thing that I was like, every time he was on screen and got to that story, I was like, oh, I want to know more about that.
And again, Walton Goggins gives Daniel Craig the opportunity to showcase his only reaction to any stimulus. And he like literally, Walton Goggins is talking, and out of nowhere, Craig punches him in the mouth and goes, "Be quiet, I'm thinking."
Yeah.
He punches, and in fact, Daniel Craig hates crotches in this movie.
He does.
He
He's-
kicks
he's a
people,
complete
knees people, and in fact, he even punches a spaceship in the
He
crotch.
punched a spaceship in the dick.
It was
Where is
amazing.
the spaceship stick?
He found
I
it.
swear to God, like, there are two little lights that look like the balls, and fucking Daniel Craig just goes right through between
Must have been one of those Transformers from Part 2.
He's
Yeah,
holding on to the
exactly.
back of this like ship thing, which looks like he's holding on to its haunches, and then he reaches the fucking thing on his arm in underneath and fires. And I swear to God, it looks like he punches a spaceship in the dick.
Wow.
It's an insane movie. We had a lot of fun with it.
So of course I had fun with
It's
this.
funny that everything that you're saying about it that you like are exactly the same things that I think are in a lot of people's criticisms and what they didn't like. But you know what? They were looking at it differently.
I looked at it.
You looked at it for camp value.
It's called Cowboys and Aliens.
No,
Yeah,
I get
I'm
that.
sorry. If you went into this expecting a fucking can winner, then that's your own fucking problem.
No, I agree with that. But I think even so, as just a popcorn film, I just didn't really think it sold. It didn't really work for me.
I ate my popcorn, Luke's popcorn, and then I had to go make more popcorn.
Yeah, oh, so you were smoking pot is what you were
I
going
was.
on.
I had the munchies hardcore.
All right.
So that's Cowboys and Aliens. Your mileage may vary.
Indeed it may. Let's move on to one that your mileage probably won't vary on, which is Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Woohoo!
I gotta tell you right now, if we had a separate award for the biggest surprise of the year,
Definitely.
it would be Rise of the Planet of the Apes, because this was on my list of films that I wouldn't feel too bad calling in sick for the night.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, really? Did you see the last Planet of the Apes? I
Oh,
mean,
it was so bad.
It made me fucking mad. And it was from a second-time director who had made an okay movie that I liked called The Escapist.
The Escapist, yeah, it was
Rupert
pretty good.
Wyatt. Yeah, it was good, but it wasn't, like, notable.
Not really.
No.
Yeah, I was
No.
like, all right, this is gonna be another one of these. You got James Franco as the lead human. I'm like, Franco's starting to get on my nerves.
And it's Franco
All right.
as
He's
like
starting to get on everyone's nerves. That's why he's going back to school.
it's
Yeah.
like Franco is one of the foremost biologists, which I know Franco himself is a very smart guy.
Sure.
But cinematically, you're like, really, James Franco?
Shouldn't he be one of the foremost?
Cinematically, he looks like a fucking retard.
He
Yes.
should be one of the
So-
foremost herbologists.
Exactly.
I believe, but probably not the other thing. But
It's something about his lips, man.
I don't know what it is.
They
But
just like they come out to like here, and he's like,
he'll
I
be
am
in
James Franco.
He'll be in stuff I really like him in, but then he'll turn around and do stuff like Your Highness, where I just want to punch him in the face and
Thank
it overrules everything else that he does. You know, it's
or
like,
the Oscars.
yeah, no doubt, right? So yeah, exactly. Yeah, or the Oscars. But you know what? This film, I love the original series. Even
Oh, hell yeah.
Even the weaker ones, I still can watch over and over and over again. And this may be the best Planet of the Apes film. And I mean, I know that's weird to say because the original is a classic. I love it with all my heart. There's so much nostalgia in there, but like just as a film,
This is a damn good film.
this probably is the best Planet of the Apes.
It doesn't
film.
have the gaping pacing problems that the original does. I love the original too. I'm a huge fan of the series, but there are moments in that first film was just like, oh my god, do I have to wait around for the Earth to explode to make this movie good? Oh
I
god.
don't think I would agree with that the conceit, but I think that this film it's all right. So the original was very much a B movie told at A level.
Yes.
This is a movie that doesn't acknowledge at all that it's a B film. It's like,
No.
no, I refuse to accept that that's a thing. I need you guys to go with us, the audience, to come with us and just accept the suspension of disbelief that that they've injected these, this institute that Franco works at is injecting these chimpanzees with a biotechnology thing that ends up working and significantly boosting their intelligence.
Uh-huh.
And which nowadays doesn't really seem terribly implausible.
No,
I don't
not
know.
at all.
I read Discover magazine and I'm like, yeah, they kind of working on shit like that already.
Yeah, they're working
So-
toward actively moving us toward the planet of the goddamn apes. Thanks,
Yeah.
science.
Good job.
Good job.
And, if I was going to say one irritating thing about that is just that I get sometimes overall mad at science fiction that feels like it needs to be nothing but, man, technology's going to fuck us all. I'm like, oh, come on, will you please stop that? If anything's going to save us, it's technology at this point. But anyway.
And Cox is still going to be saying that when, the human there at Skynet becomes active.
You're damn right. I'll be there working Skynet with the double joystick.
So I should just shoot you now.
And the Virtual Boy helmet.
God damn it.
Cox is waving as the singularity goes by.
You mean my driver?
Yes, yeah.
All right, fair enough. All right, so anyway, they end up getting an ape that, like, they're ordered to kill, and James Franco is just a big softie, so he abducts the ape secretly away and brings him home. And part of the reason he does that as well is because his own father, played by John Lithgow, is suffering from Alzheimer's. And this drug, the point of it initially was to try and cure people with Alzheimer's. So he's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, if I have these samples and this ape, I can
It gives him a motivation to like tirelessly work on this project, no matter what the cost.
Well, now, and I don't want to give away too much about this film for those who haven't seen it, but I will say that as it goes along, the good first half of the film is almost a feel-good movie. It really is.
Yeah.
Where you really get into it, the relationship between this guy, between this little family that's formed here, as well as Frida Pinto, who is one of the hottest women in the world
she's
now,
gorgeous.
by the way, who becomes James Franco's girlfriend in it. She's a primatologist. As they sort of, he kind of becomes their son in a way.
Yeah.
Their ape Caesar, which of course is played by Andy Serkis, who has gotten nominated in a bunch of different circles and a bunch of different awards for Best Supporting Actor this year.
I totally had him at the top. I was
And I sincerely hope he gets a nod.
At least something.
It's high time that, if nothing else, the Academy recognizes that mocap performances, especially Andy Serkis's mocap performances, are not just a special effect. There is a huge amount of performance that goes into that. It's not just somebody on a computer making it happen. Everything you're seeing in Caesar, just like everything you saw in Gollum, is Andy Serkis doing that.
One of the best things about this Blu-ray is to make you hyper aware of that, because the deleted scenes feature stuff with him where they obviously hadn't animated it after the fact because they knew they weren't going to use it. So it's just Serkis acting, walking around in his mocap suit, doing the whole thing, and you go, wow, this guy's amazing. I think that we're seeing as big a change in like the way that one would teach acting to performers as you did when we switched to the talkies in a lot of ways. I mean, it's a completely different fashion of acting that has a very specific set of skills. It's almost weird. It's almost going back again, like, cause like, all right, so acting, like before method acting, which was designed specifically for film, you watch older films and sometimes everyone seems like they're exaggerating too much, right? Because they're all trained for stage acting and a mode
which is exaggerated,
much larger, exactly. Yeah. Now it's like we got to go back and do that again.
Yeah,
they got to go back to stage acting.
It's almost gone back to mocap is almost Greek mask acting again.
Yeah,
where you do everything larger than life because you have barriers that you have to get through.
Yeah.
And it's incredible.
The only reason I feel like a lot of awards ceremonies don't have a specific mocap acting award yet is because who the fuck is going to win but Andy Serkis at this point?
Because they'd have to call it the Andy Serkis Award.
But so many more big filmmakers are like, I see now what the advantage of doing mocap for everything is, that we're going to see more and more big name actors going, I really want to try that. I'm super interested in seeing what I can do as a performer in using that. I think that's great. And 20 years from now, people are going to look back at Andy Serkis as one of the great actors of our
One
era.
of the pioneers of that.
One of the pioneers of the style of that type of performance. I mean, that guy's got a career for life, even if it's just as a teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is the film that they're going to look back on. I mean, even more so than Lord of the Rings, as the movie that defined what this was capable of.
Yeah.
I mean, it went from having just the dots, the little ping pong balls over your body, to literally like tiny little X's on every single place of the actor's face where the lasers can pick up on. So every facial expression is being translated into this. I mean, Caesar in this film is one of the most astonishing performances this year. It really is. It's touching and heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And wow. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about this.
And absolutely, if you're a fan of the original franchise, this cops heavily from not only the original Planet of the Apes, but Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, which is the fourth one, and by far my favorite of the old franchise. And I think they do such an incredible job of incorporating elements from both of those two movies to create a new mythology for the franchise. So, which is why I have a problem calling this a sequel, a prequel, or a remake, because it is using so many elements of these different films to kind of tell the story again, and it's so complicated.
It's a total reboot, is what it is. It's like, and they've said that as well. They're like, yeah, we are doing a sequel. Well, no duh. It was a huge performer critically and at the box office.
Yeah.
And they don't even know what they're going with it at this point. I just hope they don't feel like they have to tread the exact same ground that previous films have done. It's like, sure, take influences from them, take bits here and there, but you know what? Go your own way, because this certainly did.
We maybe don't need a cult of nuclear mutants that worship a bomb. Maybe we just leave that part out.
Wait, but I was planning on leading that cult. I even have the patches all designed and everything. You gotta have patches, right?
Oh, glorious bomb, wonderful bomb.
I have a bunch of little tiny metal pins you can put on your leather jacket.
Sweet.
So that was Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
All right, thank you.
We're getting too geeky for Luke.
And Luke, you always know the right moment to tie
I
this
love
up.
you all.
So let's move on to Kung Fu Panda 2, which was one of the best sequels this year, I thought. And There were a lot
Totally.
of sequels this year.
And
know-
weirdly, one of the best action movies this year.
Well, that's the thing about this film. It's the director of Kung Fu Panda 2, Jennifer Yu Nelson, which is actually the first. This marks the first animated Hollywood feature film directed by a woman.
Oh, fantastic.
But she was a stunt performer for Part 1.
Really?
Yeah, as well as doing a lot of other duties on there. She animated the whole credit sequence, the whole beginning sequence in there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That was beautiful.
But she really knocked it out of the park with this. I'm not even going to say the story is better. The story's about the same. Okay, it is what it is. It's a vehicle for getting you the set pieces that are absolutely amazing.
It's a coat rack. It's a very basic coat rack, and then they just hang action on top of it.
Yeah, it's not offensive or anything.
No,
or really
no, no, no,
stupid.
no.
It's just, the best thing about it is it's got Gary Oldman in the role of the evil peacock villain, and he's so good in it.
He's totally peacocking.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's who'd have thought you could sell Peacock as a villain, but wow, he nails it. And it's got kind of a little bit more of maybe a soft touch emotionally to it, but the action sequences are so much more like they just fast and well choreographed. It's like watching classic Shaw Brothers
Which,
stuff.
when you watch those, they don't have the most complicated stories.
No.
They're very basic because what you're watching it for are the action shots. And this has some of the coolest animated action sequences I think I've ever seen.
It's funny because it's taking that sensibility from all those early films where a lot of the time it was people doing animal style stuff. Like for the record, I think they re-released it. They did re-release it recently under Dragon Dynasty. There's a movie called Mad Monkey Kung Fu, which is all about a guy training.
You love that
in
movie.
Classic style to be monkey style, and it's one of many films that are like that focus around animal styles. But that's a particular highlight of seeing how crazy it is watching an actor really emulating a animal style of movement and mixing it with martial arts stuff.
Yeah.
And this does that, but in an animated sense, and in the sense that they are actually those animals. So if those animals could do all this, what would their martial arts be like?
Right.
It's amazing amount of creativity goes into
And
that.
it's got such a great meta aspect to it, where it's like the style of kung fu manifested as that animal who is then doing that style of kung fu.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thoroughly enjoyed this. Hey, you know who did punch up on the script? Who wrote a lot of the jokes?
I do not.
Charlie Kaufman.
What?
Nice.
Swear to God.
As
Very
we're sitting here
cool.
talking about how basic the story is,
Yeah.
Charlie Kaufman.
That kid
What?
Did a lot of the punch up on the jokes and the funny sequences in it.
Huh.
So, yeah, which makes sense because it was funnier than the original, if not a little bit more absurd, which, once again, Charlie Kaufman.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So, did you see this one, Lou?
I did. I thought it was beautiful. Really, really well animated film. We actually saw it in 3D, and I thought the 3D was some of the best I had seen as well.
Yeah, it was great 3D.
Yeah, if you choose to buy this in 3D, it's definitely, if you have one of those fancy, dancy, rich people who can afford a 3D television or actually want one, I'm not really. I think it's fun in the theater. I'm not sure I need one at home. But.
Unless we're watching Shark Night.
Yeah, you know what? In case Sony is listening or anybody who manufactures a 3D TV, I'm bound to talk a lot better about 3D home releases if someone was to, give me one.
What? We're not whores. Fuck you.
I'm not asking for anything from the fans. I'm asking for it from the studios.
Oh, well, that's fine.
Just saying. I'm saying can't even
Listen. I'm just saying.
That's all I'm saying. All right, so I'm a whore. Sorry. Jesus Christ. Anyway, that's Kung Fu Panda. We've talked about that at length already on the site. It's hard not to say how good that is, but you know what? Let's skip ahead to Warrior, which is another one of the best films this year.
I totally agree.
That nobody saw.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. I think a lot of the problem with that is that it was not marketed well. I think people saw the trailers and all they saw was it's a mixed martial arts movie.
Yeah, they expected it was like all the other mixed martial arts movies, which are like
Never Back Down and
Well, there's
what's
even
that Channing? Is that the Channing Tatum one? Never Back Down.
You're thinking of Fighting.
Fighting.
Well,
Fighting?
There are
Yeah,
some
that's
smaller
the name of the
ones.
Channing Tatum.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
There are some smaller ones that are kind of fun, like Undisputed 3. Wow.
Oh yes, Undisputed 3.
Incredibly fun movie, but not a blockbuster, not the sort of thing that you go, okay, you watch it with your mom and dad and yada yada.
Right.
This is the Rocky of today.
This is the Rocky of MMA.
And I don't mean that in all the Rocky cliches. I mean like it is a fighting film that is like up there on the Rocky level in quality.
It's that focused on character, the emotional resonance of the story is that strong, and not only is it an underdog story, It's a double underdog story.
Wow, and is this, I don't know if it is or not, but I can't help but think that it's the first film with this sort of setup, of which there, of course, are many. The guy underdog battling his way to the final fight, in which there are two underdogs, and you don't know which one to root for. You know, I mean, inevitably, these two actors, Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton, who are brothers, very estranged brothers, who are both fighting for their own reasons, and are both over the hill for this sort of thing.
Yeah, both of them, no one thinks have a chance.
Yeah, and they both are fighting towards that, assuming they probably won't have to fight each other. One of them will get knocked out before the end, but of course, you know, I'm not spoiling anything to tell you that, yes, of course they end up fighting each other.
The trailer for the movie, they sold the whole movie based on the two guys fighting in the main event are brothers.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. You'll like every step of this film, every inch of the way along, you'll be wishing that they don't have to fight each other because you like them both.
Yeah.
You want them both to succeed, but only one can ultimately.
Your allegiance is up for grabs.
It totally sells it. And there was points in this film that the only reason I didn't stand up and start cheering in the audience is because I didn't want to embarrass Brian, who was sitting next to me.
Well, we didn't want to get thrown. Yeah, that's true. We didn't want to get thrown out of the Alamo.
That's true. But it was very tempting.
It really was. And in fact, one of the best parts about seeing this, knowing that Dark Knight Rises is coming out this month, is when you see when you see Tom Hardy fight people in this movie, when he's let off the leash,
he is brutal.
He puts to rest any doubts anyone could possibly have about him playing Bane, because he doesn't just hurt these people, he pulverizes these people.
I can't imagine that anyone who had seen Bronson would have had any reservations to begin with.
Right, sure. But not too many people saw Bronson, unfortunately.
That is a damn shame. You should all go rent Bronson.
From the director of Drive. Yes.
Yeah, from the director of Drive. So what else do you need? And he's got Tom Hardy and everybody freaking out about Drive this year. There you go. Why aren't you watching Bronson already? It's really good. But you should be watching Warrior.
You should definitely be watching Warrior.
It's a film you watch.
Sounds like a double feature to me.
Yeah, there you go. It's a film you watch with your family. You can watch it with your friends. It's got Nick Nolte, who was my vote for Best Supporting Actor.
He was high up on my list as well.
As an ex-alcoholic who was like the worst dad ever. Like, I mean, you never really see all the details, but it's clear like this guy couldn't have been much worse than he was.
But he's so desperate to reconnect with them now that he's cleaned up, and they want nothing to do with him. And it's just heartbreaking to watch him try to reconnect with them. And at one point, this isn't a spoiler, but at one point, like, he's trying to get invited into his own son's house, and he's standing outside just kind of looking like, oh, is that my granddaughter? What's it? And it just closes the door, and it's just like, oh, it's brutal. It just hurts so much.
Oh, man, there's so many great moments in this film. It was another one of the big surprises of this movie. Not a movie I really expected. I expected to maybe have fun with it, but not to be like moved almost to tears at points by it. I mean, it's emotionally rich, really powerful, visceral film. I mean, the fight sequences will just knock you on your ass watching
as they knock each other on their asses.
Yeah. It's not one of those things where it's two guys hugging on the floor for 20 minutes.
No, they cut all the boring parts of MMA out.
Yes, they do.
I think it looks good.
Now we're going to get
Have you not seen this?
I haven't seen one.
Oh, my God, it's so good.
I wish you told me. I have it sitting at home. I would have revisited it, because fuck yeah, Warrior.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrific. It's funny, because like a lot of things critics said, it's like, does it hit some of a lot of the genre tropes that we're uncomfortably familiar with at this time, these type of films? Yeah. But it does it in a way that it makes you feel like you're seeing them happen for the first time.
But it hits them so hard it knocks their teeth to the back of their skull.
It really does. This is absolutely fantastic. It's definitely on my top 10 list for the year. But let's move on to another film.
That was Warrior.
That was Warrior. Thank you. And this is one that is not on my top 10 list, but it was an underappreciated comedy that I'm really surprised. Hell, they didn't even put this out on Blu-ray. They only put it out on DVD.
Whoa.
It's a good old-fashioned Orgy.
That's bullshit.
And I can't help but think it's because I guess the studio was uncomfortable in the first place putting out a film with this title. I can only imagine.
They shouldn't have done it.
I can only imagine what the arguments were like about it before it came out. Like saying, no, that's what we're calling it. No, you can't call a film a good old-fashioned orgy and put a wide.
It's got a pretty out there concept, and the concept basically is that these friends who have this guy who's kind of a loser, been coasting on his dad's money, has this really great beach house, and they go there all the time, and they throw these ridiculous parties. They're incredibly immature, but the dad decides he's going to sell the house, so they only have one bash remaining. So they're trying to think of the biggest thing they can possibly do to celebrate this last party at the house. So, of course, they decide to have an orgy.
Yeah.
This is a group of, like, male and female friends.
In a very self-aware sort of like, oh, it's the cheesiest thing you could possibly do, which is exactly why we got it.
It was like the hipster approach to having an orgy, which is like, that would be so ridiculous. Let's totally do it.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it is awkward. There's no question that's uncomfortable. And people saying, why is it that, like, all the women are super hot and only one of the guys is even mildly an attractive man, I guess by somebody's standard. Okay, yeah, you've got that sort of thing going on. I don't know what to tell you. It's a double standard, whatever. But if you can leave all that baggage aside and just watch this as a straight comedy, it's actually pretty goddamn entertaining.
Absolutely.
And there's a certain degree of sweetness that they come around to with these characters and their relationship to each other as we get towards the end that makes you go, you know what? This is the type of film that usually would make you start thinking all these people are so ugly that you just don't care what happens to them, like so ugly inside. But that's not the case here.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. And one of the things that I really liked about it is the fact that it acknowledges the fact that it's awkward. Because they spend weeks going back and forth. Are we going to do this? This is weird. We shouldn't do this. I don't want to. Oh no. And this is. And then they finally decide to do it. And even as they decide to do it, it's still like, how do we get started? We're not swingers. We're normal people. Like what does a normal person do in this situation?
I actually really like the way the film handled that because, you know, you're sitting down to a movie called A Good Old Fashioned Orgy. You know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You're expecting an orgy. And so even with the build-up, like, you know that eventually you're going to get to an orgy or this is a really shitty title. And so by the time you do, like, you've kind of got, you've made your own, you know, you have your own expectations of what that's going to look like. And I don't know, at least for me, I'm like, how are they really going to do this? Because my expectation is like porn star orgy. And, and A, you know they're not going to do that in a mainstream movie. And B, like, character-wise, because part of the build-up is they do spend so much time, you know, making you care about these characters. And so by the time the orgy rolls around, I don't know, I think it's really sweetly done. Is that a way to describe an orgy?
You're right. It's weird that it comes to that point that you're like, I think this is nice. It's
and it's funny because, like, there's this whole thing, I think it's with Nick Kroll's character, who, like, is kind of a weird, if you don't know who Nick Kroll is, he's kind of a weird looking dude. In fact, in one episode of The League, which is a hilarious show you should watch,
The League,
he makes a reference to the fact that he looks like a Nazi propaganda poster of a Jew, which is totally true. That's exactly what he fucking looks like. But I'm pretty sure that he's the character I'm thinking of. I saw this movie when it played theaters. No, it's just that he's kind of like, man, what's the word? Like, very good in the sack, I guess, is the best way to put it. Like, unexpectedly. And the girls are like, oh, like, no, like, his name's Adam in the film.
He's so
like,
neurotic, and they think he's the last guy who's
like,
going to be an amazing
but he's, like, he's really great and spends all the time in the right places and all that good stuff. And I really like that, because I'm like, man, I wish people were more open and would, like, realize that about a lot of geeky guys who also...
Wow, this sounds like a platform all of a sudden.
I see where this is going.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I support this.
So, Aisha Tyler, if you're listening to this...
Hey! Aisha Tyler
I'm
is
just saying.
spoken for.
That's true.
By me.
By
but
what?
Tyler Labine in this, who is also fantastic. Absolutely fantastic in Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
I don't think we can emphasize that enough.
Oh my god. He plays the character who is the least attractive, I'm just going to say, for lack of a better word.
He looks like me.
He's the... Or really any one of us, really.
Yeah.
Just he happens to have a beard. So.
Chubby and bearded.
He's an amalgamation of all of us. But yeah, he's hilarious. His one-liners are great. I think all of these characters, all of these actors who have really not worked together. You don't see too many of these people working together.
Yeah.
Just do a great job making us believe that they've been friends for years.
And Jason Sudeikis, who sometimes irritates the shit out of me. Like, the only movie I've seen him in that I really liked him in was Horrible Bosses. And he's been in a lot of other stuff that I really couldn't stand. But I liked him a lot in here.
He was very charming.
Yeah, he managed to be the guy who they've got as the Bill Murray of the cast.
Yes.
You know, whatever it's, you know, everyone knows the type of thing I'm talking about. The lead guy who's the most handsome out of everyone, who is the most charismatic out of everyone, who gets what he wants 9 times out of 10. He is the leader of the group and is, you know, has a way of talking that reminds you of that classic type persona. He sells it here. He's not too obnoxious, and he as he has been in other things. And same thing, Leslie Bibb, who I normally have issues with. I think she plays it way too broad. She's actually pretty goddamn good in here.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's a very, very underrated comedy, and mostly because yeah, you're right. Nobody fucking saw this movie.
Yeah, nobody saw it because a lot of theaters didn't pick it up.
Yeah.
Because of the title.
Yeah, they probably thought it was. I mean, it sounds like an exploitation title, to be honest, but it's actually a pretty sweet movie.
I kind of want to see that movie.
I like Roger Corman's A Good Old Fashioned Orgy.
Not kinda. I really want to see that movie. That sounds really good. All right, last one as we do the new releases, and you know what? I've said it so many times already, and I'm sorry, Corey. I know we've got our top 10 for the Spill Crew coming up, but I've said it 30 times on the site already. I'm gonna say it again. Midnight in Paris is my favorite movie this year. It's just it's out on Blu-ray, so you can see it for yourself now. It's one of the best films Woody Allen has ever done, and for a guy who's done over 40 movies in his lifetime, several of which have won, quite a few of which have won Academy Awards. That's really saying something.
And for me, somebody who does not like Woody Allen movies or Woody Allen at all, this was such a surprise to me. How much the film resonated with me and how much I absolutely loved it. I thought it was one of those movies that has a ton of heart and has a great concept, but not a concept that's overly weighty. Like, the whole movie's very breezy. And it just, I loved it. I loved the cinematography. I loved the, well, basically, I guess we should explain the fucking story here. It's just basically about a screenwriter who is in Paris with his fiance, whose fiance is a super type A nut job. Obsessed with appearances.
Yes, but it's Rachel McAdams, and she has the most perfect ass in the world. So
I will.
She is the most perfect.
That's what I meant by type A personality.
Many things.
Yes, and basically he is trying to use. He's falling in love with Paris. As a writer, he wants to branch out and not just write studio bullshit anymore. He wants to write a novel, and he finds that Paris is inspiring him so much, and he's such a fan of the classic artists that used to gather in Paris in the 20s. He goes for a walk. And at around midnight, he gets picked up by this car and taken to a bar where all of these people are alive and having a party, and he has no idea why he's there.
Yeah.
And it's pretty spectacular where it goes from there. And
for a guy who's his whole, he's got this fantasy about what Paris was.
Yeah.
You know.
Very nostalgic.
Yeah, very nostalgic about it, very living in the past about it as an artist himself. Is like, man, I wish I could have been there in that time. And so the idea of this guy who gets to, be right in the middle of this, hanging out with Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald and Josephine Baker and Gertrude Stein and Picasso and Salvador Dali is it's weird. Even if you as a viewer don't particularly care about any of those people or even know that much, Owen Wilson and Woody Allen's script by rote transfers that excitement to you and that understanding of how amazing this would be.
When you see how excited he gets, you get excited too. You're like, whoa, wow, this is great.
And they're talking about the nature of art, just like what the experiences of being a creator through a lot of it. And ultimately what it's talking about is living in the now. That's the point of this whole thing.
The grass is always greener, just accept, be happy with where you are kind of stuff.
But it's so incredibly clever. It's funny that some people called this one of the less message heavy of Allen's films, and I totally disagree. I thought it perfectly meshes his message, which is not a very well explored one in film, with the comedy. And
is I think far more optimistic and upbeat than a lot of his comedy.
Yeah.
Because the character goes through some stuff, but never to that point. Because there is a thing with comedies, especially any kind. Even not that this is necessarily a romantic comedy, but it's romanticized. There are all these things that happen typically in these type of comedies that are so obnoxious because they wouldn't happen exactly that way, but they happen. I'm not going to go into them, but suffice to say that they don't happen in this movie, and they start to go toward them, and they're like, you know what? No, we're gonna go our own way, and it's so refreshing. I love that about it, and it's more upbeat than I think a lot of Woody Allen's comedy.
I got so much out of it, of a lot of just the straight portrayals of these characters. For one thing, Marion Cotillard, who I believe her character Adriana was fictional, that she was in, but I'm not entirely sure.
And this is maybe my ignorance, but I don't remember her being historically part of the same group.
But she's a young ingenue who is coming into the scene and is dating Picasso at the time, ends up dating Hemingway, but Owen Wilson has its own crisis, I'm so hot for this girl, we've got so much in common, and yet I'm engaged back in the future to Rachel McAdams.
To a
Back to
bitch.
the
So,
Back
my
to the
God.
future.
You need to find a way to man with two brains this thing and make them into one body or something. I don't know.
I think it looks good.
But you got these great performances. Adrian Brody as Salvador Dali is hysterical.
He's quite funny.
But the standout is Corey Stoll's Ernest Hemingway.
Thank you.
Who is so brilliant. I mean, you just look, do yourself a favor before you see this film. If you've never read Hemingway, just read his Wikipedia page, right? Just about his philosophies and the type of stuff he wrote about.
Yeah,
just
you
so you
can-
have a general idea of who the man was.
Exactly.
And then watch this, and you'll see why this is so goddamn fun.
And what's great is when, as a kid, my dad was such a huge Hemingway nut and, told me all these things about it. I read Hemingway and I was excited to watch this movie with my dad, and like how spot on Corey Stoll's portrayal of Ernest Hemingway is just phenomenal. And my dad, who is basically an expert on Hemingway, just sat there loving every second of it, and it was so rewarding.
I'm going to see my parents in a week, and I can hardly wait to show them this movie.
This is a great movie to watch with your parents.
Absolutely.
Like, just in general.
I'm sorry, this movie made $143 fucking million.
And it's a Woody Allen
Dear
film.
God.
Yeah.
Those are huge fucking numbers
It
for
is
this type
in the
of film.
first in the first week. It was the most successful Woody Allen film of all time. In the first week,
Yeah.
what does that tell you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, this is
That it's a good movie to take your parents to see opening weekend.
Or
huge
your
fuck off
girlfriend,
numbers for
or-
this movie.
Yeah, huge fuck off numbers.
Huge
It is-
fuck off numbers.
143 million is fucking insane.
It is insane. And I can't say enough good things about it. It's one of those movies that every time I see it, I like it more, and I will go back and watch it again and again and again.
Absolutely.
But that ends it for this section, because we've talked about all the new releases that aren't what we're talking about in our next section, which is horror. Because it's come on, it's me, Brian, and Luke. We got to talk about horror. And there's a
We'd
bunch,
be crazy not to.
There's a bunch
do
of new
love the blood.
horror releases, including some stuff that came out this year. So before we do that, though, it's time for another giveaway.
Giveaway!
So now I got to look through the list. And you know what? We were talking about 3D earlier, so why not this? I got 4 of the people who you're out there who've actually got those 3D sets. I got 4 of the Blu-ray HD 3D sets here from Disney. I've got Bolt, Meet the Robinsons, Nomeo and Juliet, and G-Force.
Oh boy, G-Force.
Okay. And
Yes, but thank you to Disney for providing those.
Well,
for
plus
us.
the other ones are pretty damn good.
Yeah, Bolton and Meet the Robinsons at least.
You know what? I love Nomeo and Juliet.
I
was a
haven't seen it.
Huge fan of that movie. It sounds retarded, and then we all walked out. It was another surprise film. We walked out going, wow, did anybody else like that as much as I did?
Yeah.
And we all really, really liked it.
See, there you go.
Maybe not G-Force 3D so much, but maybe...
But Bolt is absolutely outstanding.
Bolt is absolutely wonderful. Actually, Meet the Robinsons is fun. It maybe goes on a little bit too long, but all of these are great films, especially if you have kids around.
Heck yeah.
Because they're all so super colorful. And like I said, they're in fucking 3D.
Yeah,
so.
these are really, really nice, like 4-disc sets.
Now, I don't know how you want to do the thing for this one, because I got 4 totally different films here. So what do you want to do?
Oh, as far as coming up with one keyword?
Yeah, what are we going to do the keyword, and how are we going to decide who gets what?
Oh, goodness.
We're going to work this out on mic. That's
Wow,
how
yeah,
I say that we go like in order, the first 4, and then the first guy gets to pick.
There you go.
Oh, that's
You know?
interesting.
Yeah, as each person
So
goes.
you know if you're number 4, you're getting stuck with fucking G-Force, and we're
But
sorry
G-Force
about
in
that.
3D.
But it is G-Force in 3D.
So what's the code word, though?
Oh, okay. So it needs to be something related to 3D, but not as easy as just 3D. So-
Sticky fingers.
Sticky fingers.
I was just thinking because of kids, but go with something 3D related.
How about Red
Haggleth.
versus Blue?
Red versus blue.
There you go. That's good. And those guys at Rooster Teeth will be happy.
There you go.
Absolutely.
See what I did there?
Yeah, if you guys aren't familiar with the Red versus Blue series, please hop on over to roosterteeth.com. Check out the good work that they do.
Oh, very, very funny. In fact, our friend from Master Pancake, John Erler, has been appearing in a lot of their live action shorts they've been doing lately.
Yeah, they're really starting to branch out a lot. I know Bernie Burns over there is really trying to do a lot of different stuff. So.
I thoroughly enjoy the direction those guys are heading. They're going all over the place, trying different things.
They're
and
blowing up, yo!
pretty consistently funny, and they're from fucking
Absolutely.
Austin,
Yeah,
yo.
they are.
Austin.
Yeah, maybe we can talk them into coming back to Spill.com again like they did 2 years ago. So, anyway, we're going to take a break, and we will be back with horror. And like I said, don't forget, if you want those 3D things, the code is Red versus Blue.